Southern Oregon is the best place to retire in Oregon, and probably the best place to retire on the entire West Coast. And I know that's a big claim, and that's probably going to offend a bunch of the snowbirds down in Arizona. They're going to get super offended, but they're wrong. And I'm going to tell you exactly why that is. But here's the deal. This video is about the best time to retire in Southern Oregon, okay? It's not a showdown of Southern Oregon versus the rest of the West Coast, but I will spend a minute explaining why this is the best retirement destination on the West Coast, because that is a big claim, and I'm not one to make big claims without backing them up. But first, I'm going to tell you all that information that you came here to learn in the first place, okay? You want to know what are the best towns in Southern Oregon to retire to. You want to know what makes them the best towns, and you want to know what they look like. You want to know if they're a good fit for you. So why don't we just go ahead and cut to the chase, and I'm going to give you those answers that you came here to get. So what are the best towns in Southern Oregon to retire? Well, honestly, I could probably make a case for almost every town in Southern Oregon, but I'm going to give you just the top 5 that really stood out to me, okay? And I hate to say it, but the hometown that I live in, Rogue River, it pains me to say it, is not even on this list, okay? So we're gonna call that a runner-up at number 6, but let's go ahead and explore the top 5, and I'm gonna show you what they look like. I'm gonna tell you what makes them so amazing, and give you a little tour of Southern Oregon. First up on the list is Jacksonville, Oregon. Jacksonville is located about 5 miles west of Medford, and it's where Southern Oregon really started, okay? It was founded back in 1850. It has this very beautiful, historic downtown area. It's very festive, and they decorate it during the holidays. It's really a beautiful town. Lots of gorgeous vineyards all around it, like Danson and Hummingbird Estates. They're both absolutely stunning with great views of the valley all around. And from the West Hills, like Old Stage Road, that area just outside of Jacksonville, you get some phenomenal views of the entire Rogue Valley with Mount McLaughlin in the distance and Roxanne and all the different mountain ranges, Table Rocks. You can see all of those, and it's just a very, very pretty spot, and probably the prettiest town in Southern Oregon, and that's definitely one of the main reasons that it's on this list. And we'll talk more about Jacksonville here in a second. Sorry, I get all excited and worked up talking about Southern Oregon, and I forgot to even introduce myself. So I'm Brian Simmons. I'm a licensed real estate agent with eXp Realty, and I would love to help you learn, buy, or list real estate here in Southern Oregon. So if there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to reach out, call me or text me at 541-954-7758, or you can shoot me an email, and you can find my email address down in the description of this video. Now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to the second one, which is Eagle Point, Oregon. Located about 10 miles north of Medford is Eagle Point, and it is a nice little community out there that has a little bit more of a rural feeling. There's a lot more farms out there. It's got rolling hills and creeks like the Little Butte Creek that run right through the town that make this just really nice environment. It's a very cool place, okay? There's Butte Creek Mill out there, which was built in the 1870s and it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and it actually burnt down in 2015 and was restored in 2020. It has a really cool country store out there. It's definitely worth checking out. But Eagle Point just has its whole own feel, and it's very much more of that country kind of farm community type of a feel. It's very, very cool. It's closer to the Rogue River, and it's also really well known for the Eagle Point golf community, which we will definitely talk more about here in a few minutes. Next up on the list is Medford, Oregon, which is right at the heart of the Rogue Valley, and Medford is the largest city in all of Southern Oregon. And being the largest city, of course, it's going to have the most diversity in terms of, you know, the types of neighborhoods that are out there, from lower priced affordable homes to the ultra fancy high-end estates, okay? A lot of parks in Medford, a lot of greenery throughout the city, and all sorts of stuff. Lots of restaurants, lots of shopping. It's where the medical is, where the big hospital is, and actually 2 hospitals. All the specialists are in Medford for the most part, over in the East Medford area. And so, and it also has a downtown area that's been up and coming. So a lot going on in Medford that just kind of make it, you know, really the hub of Southern Oregon. And so obviously location-wise, it's going to be one of the best there is, because everything kind of goes through Medford. And then we go to Ashland, Oregon, which is located about 13 miles south of downtown Medford. And Ashland has a downtown area that is absolutely thriving. Okay, we call it the Plaza, and it is amazing. There's incredible restaurants and shops and art galleries and parks like Lithia Park right there, all in the downtown area, that just create a really unique atmosphere there in downtown Ashland. Okay, and it's known as a city for its hills and its beautiful trees, and especially in the fall season, the colors of the trees are just gorgeous. Okay, so you definitely want to take a walk through Lithia Park in the fall if you can. It's absolutely stunning. I don't want to give it all away on Ashland right now, so we're going to come back to what makes Ashland one of the best towns to retire to in Southern Oregon in just a minute. First, we have to get to Central Point, which is the 5th one on our list. And again, these are in no particular order, but Central Point is the 5th city, and it's located just a few miles northwest of Medford. And the location is fantastic, very central, hence the name. Easy to get pretty much anywhere. It's close to the freeway. It's close to Highway 99. It's very, very simple to get really anywhere you want to go from Central Point. Okay, lots of new development has been going on there. The downtown area has undergone a lot of facelifting lately, and it's really a pretty town. When you drive through, it has that kind of updated look, and the downtown feels like it's kind of a higher end community. And so kudos to Central Point for doing a lot of that over the last decade or so, and really making their city a step above many of the others in the area. So those are the 5 best towns to retire to in Southern Oregon, but what actually makes them the best towns to retire to? Okay, why don't we take a closer look at each one individually, starting with Jacksonville. So Jacksonville is, like I said previously, one of the higher end communities of Southern Oregon. It's probably the highest end along with Ashland, okay? And with that comes a lot of just beautiful homes and higher end communities and all those sorts of things, okay? It's a very walkable town, and there's a lot of things to do. Like I mentioned, it's very festive. So in the Christmas time or Halloween, there's always all these different decorations and stuff going on, and you can do fun things like a haunted trolley ride through town where they take you through the historic buildings and show you which ones are, haunted or whatever. It's really a lot of fun and a great experience for people who are coming in from out of town, family or friends or whatever. But a lot of fun restaurants, good shops, and all those sorts of things around the downtown area. Many opportunities for walking and hiking and biking if you want to stay active. There's a lot of those types of things there. And like I mentioned previously, it's a place where friends and family from out of the area will have a really, really good time coming to visit you in Jacksonville. Okay, there's always something to do, like I said, from the trolley rides to visiting some of the local vineyards like Danson or Hummingbird or Relic or any of the others that are right there, around the Jacksonville area. But there's so many great things. The Brit Festival, especially, if you have family or friends coming in the summertime, the Brit Festival has incredible outdoor concerts that anybody would have a good time at. So it's really, really cool for that. And that's in addition to all the hiking and the museums and all the other great things to do for sightseeing for people coming into town. Now let's dive into Eagle Point a little bit. Okay, so Eagle Point is one of the areas that's probably going to be a little bit of a lower price point than the other areas on this list. Okay, it's probably right at the median price points for all of Southern Oregon. Maybe it's slightly above the median, but it is a really, a little bit more of affordable community. And it's going to depend though, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities in Eagle Point for places that have a little bit more land, right? So if you were to take if you were looking for a place that was, on a half an acre or a full acre or something like that, you're going to have more opportunity around the Eagle Point area than you would, let's say, in Medford or maybe even in Ashland. Depending on your price point. Eagle Point's also a little bit further out of town, all right? So you're talking about probably 25 minutes to get to the hospital and the different medical specialists that all reside over in the East Medford area. But Eagle Point, although it's further away from those things, it does have, plenty of shopping. It has grocery stores. It has a super Walmart that has everything you can imagine out there within Eagle Point itself. There's also some good restaurants and banks and doctor's offices and those sorts of things. So really is a self-contained community, but about 20-25 minutes to get to the hospital and those sorts of things if that's something you wanted to be closer to. I mentioned the country feel out there, and it's definitely something that is worth noting about Eagle Point, is that you're going to get that country vibe. You're going to be surrounded by, green pastures and farms and those sorts of things as you drive out there, or if you drive around Eagle Point. A lot of that going on. And of course, the Eagle Point golf course has a lot of the greenery out there. So if you're a golfer, there's really fewer parts of Southern Oregon that are as good as Eagle Point for that specifically, okay? If you want a home on the golf course, the homes on the Eagle Point golf course are stunning, okay? There's beautiful, beautiful homes with beautiful views of the golf course and the mountains around it and all sorts of great stuff. And the golf course out there has a really beautiful grill. They have a hotel for friends and family that are coming in from out of town. And it's a really good community for walking. There's walking paths all around the exterior of the golf course and nice big sidewalks, in a lot of the communities. One of the other things that Eagle Point is home to is the Eagle Point National Cemetery, which is an absolutely stunning, beautiful, well-manicured final resting place for members of the armed forces. And it's something that's really, treasured by the Eagle Point community, and they feel very fortunate to have that there. And it's, something that just sets it apart again as a really amazing patriotic community that has just a different feel, the different small town country feel than some of the other places on this list. Medford, Oregon is the next one, and let's dive into Medford a little bit. So Medford is the biggest city on this list, like I mentioned previously, and because of that, it has the widest range of pretty much everything. Okay, widest range of price points across town, widest range of types of communities, from older original Medford to brand new developments. Okay, so huge range of those types of things, big range of things to do. Okay, there's the hiking and biking and golfing at the Rogue Valley Country Club, or you can hike Roxanne Peak. You can shop downtown, you can go to performances at the Criterion Theater. There's all sorts of different things. Medford also has a really good senior care facility, variety of those types of facilities, from the Springs at Veranda Park, the Springs at Anna Maria, and I could go on. There's many others, Bonaventure, and several others that are really nice facilities that are newer, and all those sorts of things. So again, Medford just kind of has it all, right? So it's hard to go wrong with Medford, because you could look for, the higher end community, and there's some great options there. You could look for something more affordable. You could look for an older home that you want to restore, and Medford just kind of has it all in terms of that. So great option for many types of people in Medford. Next up is Ashland. Okay, and so Ashland is going to be at the top of the price point, along with Jacksonville, compared to the rest of the cities on this list. Okay, and that's for good reason, because Ashland has a lot of really incredible homes. As you go up the hill in Ashland, there's some really just stunning places with beautiful views, and just really a lot of great options up there. So when it comes to what Ashland is known for, though, and what the community has to offer, it's known for really the culture, right? For the art scene, and there's really nowhere else in Southern Oregon that's going to compare if those are the things that are important to you. So, for example, you have the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and you have the Ashland Independent Film Festival. There's all sorts of concerts and performances and art galleries and all sorts of stuff. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, the arts, Ashland is just second to none. There's nowhere else in Southern Oregon that's going to even come close to what Ashland has to offer in all of that side of things. In addition to the outdoor activities that you have around Ashland, with Lithia Park right there, and the Japanese garden that they have there that's unreal. Lots of hiking trails. There's Mount Ashland for skiing and snowboarding. There's Immigrant Lake for fishing and kayaking and paddleboarding, and there's just so many things to do around Ashland. It's crazy. On top of that, it's a college town, okay? And so being home to Southern Oregon University offers all sorts of different things, like just a good mix of people, right? You have the young people, the students that are there. You also have a lot of retirees. You have a lot of really wealthy professionals. And so it's a community that just has a big mix of different types of people. And that's one of the things that, the Ashland residents really, pride themselves on, is having this very diverse mix and a really diverse community. And Ashland's a city that really cares deeply about the environment and about sustainability. And so if those are things that are important to you, just like the arts, there's really nowhere else in Southern Oregon that puts as much of an emphasis on those things compared to Ashland. Okay, it really is, head and shoulders above everywhere else when it comes to those things. And again, it's a place that your family and friends will love to come visit you at. Okay, there's so many things to do in Ashland, depending on who you have, coming to visit you. If it's the grandkids, there's the Science Works Museum, or there's skiing at Mount Ashland, or taking them to a play at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Or you can wine and dine your friends that come into town at some of the various vineyards, Bellafiore, Irving and Roberts. So there's some really spectacular vineyards all around, in addition to all the really incredible restaurants downtown at the plaza. So again, a place that you enjoying bringing your family and friends to. They'll enjoy coming to visit you here And so Ashland, again, is just one of the places that has so much to offer to so many different types of people. And the last one on our list, again, is Central Point, okay? And Central Point is great because it is probably the most balanced of all of the cities that we talked about, okay? It's slightly above average in terms of the price, but it's really a well-kept town, a nice clean town. It does have kind of part of that country feel like Eagle Point has. Parts of it, have more of that than others, but it also has parts that have that high-end neighborhood feel, like kind of the Twin Creeks neighborhood and Central Point East. Really, really pretty homes in there that are on parks, and a lot of nice homes and newer developments and stuff going on around there. But you could also go, another mile away from those, and you could be out in the farms, and you can have some really pretty properties out there. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You get all of that, but you're also closer to Medford, and it's a very walkable town, and it has the feel of being kind of more of like a higher end community in a sense. So really a lot going on there in Central Point, and I think it's definitely one of the reasons why it is high on this list. It also has some really good senior care facilities, like I mentioned, similar to Medford. Central Point has the Twin Creeks retirement community and the Pear Valley Senior Living community, both of which are nice, newer, big facilities that have gotten really good reviews from what I've seen. Another thing that you're going to want to know about Central Point is that it's very, very close to the Jackson County Expo. In fact, the Expo is in Central Point, just right on the other side of the freeway from the downtown Central Point area. But the Jackson County Expo has tons of things to do. So again, if you have people coming in from out of town, this is something you're going to want to look at. And one of the benefits of being in Central Point is it's all just so close. But you have, car shows and rodeos all going on at the Jackson County Expo, concerts, home shows, the outdoor show, the county fair, there's monster trucks, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on there at the Jackson County Expo. And so that's something to be aware of if you like to go do those types of things and get out of the house and go see what's going on out there. Being in Central Point would be a big benefit because it's just so close to all that. So those are the best towns to retire to in Southern Oregon, but are these towns a good fit for you, or which one would be the best fit for you? Okay, and that really depends on you, right? It depends on what it is that you enjoy doing or you want to enjoy doing during your retirement. So if you're a golfer, for example, you're really going to want to look probably at Eagle Point and the Eagle Point Golf Community and Medford. Those are probably the two best bets if you're interested in golfing, which a lot of retirees do, right? So Medford has the Rogue Valley Country Club, which has some beautiful homes that are all on the golf course where you can hop in your golf cart and go drive to the course, similar to Eagle Point. But Medford also has Centennial, which is my favorite golf course in Southern Oregon. It's a beautiful golf course, very nicely kept, big wide fairways for people like me who need those, but a lot of fun, really a beautiful golf course. And that's one of the reasons why I would say Medford might get the nod on Eagle Point a little bit, because you just have a little bit more variety in terms of golf. But if you're looking solely for the golf community where you can have your house on the golf course, I'm going to give the edge to Eagle Point in the Eagle Point Golf Community for that. What about outdoor recreation? If you're interested in hiking and hunting and fishing and skiing and biking and all those things outdoors, which is what Southern Oregon is known so well for, which city is going to be the best for you in that regard? Well, pretty much all of them, honestly, because there's really, it's hard to say one's any better than the other, because it's going to depend on what it is specifically that you want to do, right? If you like fishing in the river, Eagle Point is going to be the closest to the Upper Rogue, where you're going to probably want to target your fishing, or maybe even going towards Grants Pass. That could be worth doing. Or Rogue River, which was the runner-up on our list, is another one that would be worth looking at if you were interested in fishing. But if it's hiking, there's other options. If it's hunting, there's other options. And so it really just depends specifically on what it is that you're really, really interested in. And so happy to have that conversation with you if you like. So don't hesitate to reach out, and I can make more suggestions based on your specific interests in that regard. I know a lot of retirees also are very interested in gardening. And so if that's something that is your hobby, then you're definitely going to want to look into Central Point and Eagle Point as two of the best towns for those types of activities. And the reason being is because there's a lot more properties there that are more suitable to gardening. Okay, so in contrast, if you were to look at Ashland, Ashland tends to be more hilly and probably less, opportunity there to get an actual real garden. I'm sure you could put a garden in, but you would probably be doing some sort of a terraced thing, and not like Central Point or Eagle Point where you can have, you know, a full-on acre that you would have some really good access to being able to garden. On the other side of the coin, if your interests were arts and culture, then Ashland and Jacksonville are definitely going to be your best bets there because of the things I mentioned previously. The Brit Festival in Jacksonville, the art galleries in both of those towns are amazing. The Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, the Southern Oregon University in Ashland, and just being a college town brings all that culture. So if that's your thing, then Ashland and Jacksonville are definitely going to be the ones that you're going to want to take a look at. What about if you're a socialite though? If that's your thing, then you want to take a look at Medford. Okay, Medford definitely has the most going on. You have the Rogue Valley Country Club, and you can become a member there, and there's all sorts of different social events that go on there. So if socializing is your big thing, I would definitely suggest Medford. There's a lot of different types of clubs you can join and different ways that you can participate within the community. So I would certainly suggest Medford would be a big one that I would want to take a look at if I were you, if you're interested in all the social aspects. On the other hand, if you're looking for something on the opposite end of the spectrum and you're just wanting to have a real calm and quiet retirement and sit on the front porch in your rocking chair and sip your coffee and just have peace and quiet and listen to the birds chirp, if that's your thing, then I'm going to say Eagle Point and maybe even that runner-up on our list, Rogue River, are probably going to be your best bets there. They're both further away from the freeway, especially Eagle Point, and Rogue River is right on the freeway, the town itself, but most of the housing is actually back off of the other side of the town to where you're not hearing the freeway. So I really talk about, you know, those as good options for you if you wanted to just have that kind of more laid back country feel where you can sit on that front porch and sip your coffee or a glass of wine or whatever and just hang out. You're going to really enjoy both of those two options. Or if you have grandkids that are coming into town a lot that are going to come visit you guys, then, you know, Central Point, Ashland, Jacksonville, all those are going to have great options for entertaining the grandkids and going out and doing a lot of fun things without having to really drive a long distance. Okay, so Central Point again has the expo. Ashland has so many things going on, and in Jacksonville as well has hiking trails and museums and all sorts of really, really fun stuff that would certainly be entertaining for, you know, grandkids and big kids of all ages. So now that we talked about the best towns to retire in Southern Oregon, I want to revisit that big claim that I made in the very beginning. Do you remember that? I said that Southern Oregon is the best retirement destination on the West Coast, and I need to tell you why that is now. It's time to back it up, okay? And the reason being is all of the other folks that are in Arizona and Nevada and Idaho who love their retirement towns and they think that they have the best retirement town on the West Coast, I got some news for you. You don't even live on the West Coast, okay? Because the West Coast is actually California, Oregon, and Washington, okay? Arizona, Nevada, and Idaho do not have a coast. So if you don't have a coast, how can you be part of the West Coast, right? So it's a non-starter, all right? So what we have is California, Oregon, and Washington as the West Coast. And if you look at those states, you see California, which has had over 800,000 people leave the state in the year of 2022, which is the most recent census data we have. And Washington had over 250,000 people leave the state in 2022. And of course, all states have people moving in and people moving out, but those numbers are pretty staggering. And when you compare them to the numbers of Southern Oregon, you can see in Jackson and Josephine counties, we have a net migration number that's actually positive. So we have more people moving into the area down here than we do moving out of the area. And the projections are for that to continue to happen, okay, for a long time into the future. But why? That's actually pretty simple. The first reason is that the cost of living is one of the lowest on the West Coast, okay? And when you look at Southern Oregon's cost of living, if you look at Medford or Grants Pass and you compare it to the national average, it'll show that it's actually above the national average because the national average includes places like Missouri and West Virginia and Arkansas that are very, very inexpensive. But when you look at other parts of the West Coast, if you look at Los Angeles or San Francisco or Sacramento or Portland or Eugene or Bend, Oregon or Seattle, any of those, Medford and Grants Pass, Southern Oregon is far cheaper for cost of living than any of those other areas that I can see on the West Coast. And I'm sure there's probably some town somewhere that has a lower cost of living than the area here, but it's not going to be as well balanced as what you have here in the other areas I wanted to talk about, which is the second one, which is the medical, okay? The medical care in Southern Oregon is spectacular, all right? Asante Health Systems is a top 15 health system in the entire country, and it has been for the last 10 years. So that's something that's really unique to this area. to have the balance of all of these things, including the climate, okay? We have over 200 days of sunshine a year and a fraction of the annual rainfall that you're going to see in places like Portland, Eugene, Seattle, and the traditional, Pacific Northwest that everybody thinks about when they think of Oregon and Washington. But that's the thing. Southern Oregon doesn't have that type of climate. We don't have the Portland and Seattle type of a rainforest. We're much more like, Northern California, like a Sacramento type of a climate. Much more like that than we are Portland or Seattle. And the last reason is that our location is really, really spectacular, okay? With just a quick half a day drive, you could be to so many areas, from the Oregon coast to the beautiful Cascades, to Lake Tahoe, to the Bay Area, to Portland. You could be all over the place in just a few, 3-hour drive or a 5-hour drive. You could be in any of those places, which makes it such a great location for just jumping off to any of those spots for a quick weekend trip. Or we have the Rogue Valley International Airport, which has direct flights to all sorts of different big major hubs like Salt Lake City or Seattle or San Francisco or Portland or Denver even. So all sorts of great options. It's very easy to get around from Southern Oregon, and our location is really, really spectacular. So that balance of those things is what makes this one of the premier, if not the best, place on the West Coast to retire to. Southern Oregon has some secrets that you probably do not know about unless you are a local, okay? Trust me, I have scoured the internet looking for articles or blogs or anything I could find that makes any mention of these secrets at all. Some are good, some are bad, but this YouTube channel right here is pretty much it. And this video specifically is one of the best that you can find if you're retired or retiring or even just relocating and you want to get the dirt on Southern Oregon, okay? But I will share what I think is actually the best video for you to watch if you're considering retiring to Southern Oregon and you want to know what you're getting yourself into before you make the move. So stick around for that suggestion. But back to the secrets. If you're not familiar, Southern Oregon is a little hidden gem on the West Coast that's becoming increasingly popular because it isn't California. Sorry. It also isn't a rainforest like Seattle, Portland, or Eugene, and it has a really low cost of living for the West Coast. But none of that's really that big of a secret, okay? But what seems to be fairly secretive is some of the other facts. Like we have really incredibly beautiful homes that are on par with some of the best and most high-end areas that you're familiar with, but they're just a fraction of the cost here. Here we also have countless award-winning vineyards and a thriving wine scene, okay? We have a shockingly good arts community, and we're home to one of the top 10 small arts towns in America. Add in the fact that we have a very mild Mediterranean climate, an international airport, endless outdoor recreational activities, and you can start to see why Southern Oregon is finding its way onto so many retirement destination shortlists. But before you pack your bags, there's some things that you need to know about the cities and the towns across Southern Oregon so that you can figure out which ones feel like they could be the best fit for you. I'm Brian Simmons with the Buying Southern Oregon Real Estate Team, and I'm going to hop over to my computer and I'm going to open up a map and do a little talking tour and show you around the area. Let's go. So I'd like to start by explaining where Southern Oregon even is. It sounds pretty self-explanatory that it is in the southern part of the state, but what we're really referring to when we talk about Southern Oregon is the area between Jackson and Josephine counties. So it's kind of like this area. And Jackson and Josephine County splits something like that. This being Jackson over here with Medford and Josephine over there to the west. So that's really the general area. It's also called the Rogue Valley, and it's primarily because there's a valley that runs here, between the hills there, the valley, and then it kind of extends into like Grants Pass area like that, and that's what we call the Rogue Valley. So if you look at the other view here, you can see the terrain view. You can see more of the mountains up here, and the Cascade Mountains over here, and then this all that you're seeing over here is the Siskiyou Mountain Range, and so we're kind of sandwiched in between. You also have all the mountains here to the south. Anyways, what you get is just this really big valley kind of right in the middle of it all. And that is Southern Oregon, okay? The area is known for having just kind of the laid-back, slower pace of life, lots of natural beauty and everything. And you can see in this view all the greenery, trees, and all that good stuff. But what's nice about this view here is you can start to see more of the lakes and rivers and all that kind of stuff. And so if we start with the lakes, you can see Crater Lake up here, Lost Creek Lake, Klamath Lake over in Klamath County, and all these lakes up in the mountains, in the Cascades, Lake of the Woods, Hyatt Lake, Howard Prairie, all sorts of great lakes up there.
and the rivers. Okay, Rogue River comes out of Crater Lake, goes down here through Lost Creek, and goes through Gold Hill, Grants Pass, and then on over to the coast. And Applegate Lake, a river, goes right into it just like that. So give you kind of a little bit of a lay of the land there of what we have to deal with here. But again, the area here is just known for having kind of the more laid back, slower pace of life, lots of fun stuff to do outside, a lot of good natural, nature related like activities, camping, hiking, biking, all those fun things, and just great, access to the outdoors. So that's kind of stuff that's easy to find out, but we're here to talk about the things that are not as easy to find out, the little secrets. And that's what I'm going to explain to you here in a second. One last thing I do want to point out that I think is really important is noticing that I-5, Interstate 5 runs right through Southern Oregon. And that's just a great, convenience really to be able to get wherever you need to get. From Southern Oregon, Medford, Ashland, Grants Pass area, it's really not that far to get to Portland, Eugene, Bend is right here, Tahoe and Reno is right here, Bay Area is just a little bit further down there, Seattle's right up there. So it's really not far to get to these things. It's about probably 5 or 6 hour drive to Seattle, about 5-6 hours down to Reno, same down to the Bay Area, and over to the Oregon coast right there. Really not that bad at all. It's only about 3 hours. So from here, you really have a lot of great opportunities to get to other areas that are really, really nice. So if it's hot here in the valley, we'll talk about weather later. If it's hot, you can go over to the coast and experience, nice, cool coastal climate. So that is something that's really, really nice. But I want to talk about, again, the towns. Okay, so we're going to talk about like what are these little secrets that you probably don't know about in Southern Oregon, and it's things related to the towns. Okay, so we're going to start with the biggest town, which is Medford, and I think you could probably call it a city, but Medford is about 85,000 people. Okay, and you're starting to see some of my favorites pop up here. Thanks Google for that. But Tap and Vine Restaurant, awesome. It's kind of the hub of the area, and that's because you have the hospitals and stuff. Airport is in Medford. And you start to get to, the hospitals and all that, and you can start to see why it's the hub, right? A lot of people want to be near where all the work is, and where the medical facilities and whatnot are. So Medford really gets a good, this is popular for those reasons. Okay. And we're going to jump into various other towns as we go across this list. But the key with Medford is, biggest city, most amenities, whether it's shopping, whether it's medical, or whatever it is. And that's really kind of what makes it popular. Okay. And also proximity to all the outdoor recreational activities. So when we talk about Medford, again, it's really, kind of the area that you're seeing on the map. Probably like starts right in here. And then you got West Medford over here, East Medford up in this area, and then kind of newer developing going on over in this range. So a lot of new development there. East Medford stuff over here, West Medford over here, kind of the downtown stuff here. Downtown proper's here, but this is kind of like old Medford over here. So anyways, the area that, a lot of the folks who are considering retiring to Southern Oregon, Medford specifically, end up kind of focusing more often than not on what you're seeing in this area right here, which is technically East Medford. And it's because you have the hospital system right here, and a lot of the specialists are in that same area. So if we zoom into that, you'll see the Asante Rogue Regional Medical Center, you'll see Southern Oregon Orthopedics, you'll see a lot of the various, doctors and specialists and all that are in this general vicinity. Okay, so you get a lot of people wanting to be in that area for that reason. Okay, in addition to all the medical that you get in Medford, you're probably seeing the Country Club Golf Course here, Centennial Golf Course here, Quail Point Golf Course here. Those are all East Medford. We get also, in addition to all of that, some really nice newer neighborhoods like this right in this area. You get all the kind of Eagle Trace subdivision up in there, and lots of really, really cool areas. Cherry Lane's kind of older East Medford, high-end area off the Country Club, but lots of like really nice, places that become really popular with people who are considering retiring here because of their proximity to recreation and their proximity to medical and all that stuff. So that's something you're looking at. East Medford is an area that is certainly worth another look, or maybe a more detailed look. But the question here, what is the dirty little secret? What do you not know about Medford? What are you not hearing on other, articles and blogs and other YouTube channels? What are they not telling you? And one of the keys with Medford that they're not telling you is the homelessness, okay? And homelessness isn't really, in my opinion, as big a problem here as it is in areas like Eugene, Salem, Portland, Bay Area, really most of the West Coast, frankly. But what it is actually really a thing, and you will notice it if you come into Medford, especially if you go to some of the public parks that are near Interstate 5. So again, you see Interstate 5 going right down the screen. But the public parks that are close, like Hawthorne Park, okay, I've talked about that in a lot of the videos. Hawthorne Park and even Bear Creek Park over here, and this whole kind of area along the interstate tends to be the most popular area for the homeless population. They tend to kind of go along what's called the Greenway here, which is a bike path that as we zoom in, you might be able to see it here. You can see the Bear Creek Greenway right there. But you tend to get a lot of the homeless population utilizing that as kind of their corridor. And so the closer you are to that, the more you're going to see that. And that's kind of the dirty little secret of Medford, I would say, is just knowing that exists there, okay? As you get further away, and this is why, that East Medford area is kind of the more popular among people looking to retire to Southern Oregon, is because you get further away from that and you don't see as much of it. Okay? That's one of the reasons why this area is much more popular for people looking for that lifestyle. So the types of homes you're gonna be able to find in East Medford and just Medford in general is a huge variety. Okay, anything from newer homes in these newer developments like you're seeing here, to really big fancy homes like you're seeing here, to starter homes and lower price point homes. Median price point here being in probably the $450 to $500 range. As you get into East Medford, probably getting a little bit higher than that, all the way up into getting into this Autumn Park and Saddle Ridge neighborhood where you're looking at $1.5 million homes in this range. So quite the variety. But really is a place that has kind of something for everyone. If you're looking for, the closer to the median price point, this kind of area off of Wanapero is a pretty popular option, especially, as you kind of get into really kind of some of these like older communities that are more original, built in like the 70s, 80s, stuff like that. You get a lot more affordable. But that's Medford. Now let's jump over to another very, very popular retirement destination in Southern Oregon, and that is Ashland. Okay, so Ashland is about 15-20 minutes or so south on Interstate 5 or Highway 99. It is really the first city you come to if you're driving on I-5, from California. It's Ashland. And so if we zoom into Ashland, you'll see a few things kind of appear, and I'll make it a little more obvious for you with this terrain map. Is you can see the hills. There are a lot of hills kind of here to the west of Ashland, and it causes some of the city to actually be relatively hilly. You'll see some of this area in here where you get some great views over to the east and everything. That's primarily because you're up on these hills. And so you get some great views and all that fun stuff. But Ashland is a college town home to Southern Oregon University, which you can see right here. Beautiful campus and everything there. And in addition to being known as a college town, it's also known for being a very artsy type of community. And this is where I was talking about is Ashland was just named one of the top 10 small arts towns in America, which is really fantastic and really well deserved in my opinion. As you go in and you zoom into the downtown area, this is the Ashland Plaza, and this is kind of the epicenter. And this will show you kind of why Ashland's really well known for being such an artsy town. Is you have things like the Shakespeare Festival right here at the Elizabethan Theater, which is very, very popular. Lots of incredible shows and stuff going there. But this plaza, which is all right here, is lined with amazing restaurants and shops and art galleries. And as you go on up East Main right here, more art galleries and all sorts of great stuff all along that street for quite a ways, really. Probably all the way up to Gresham, or 3rd Street here is where I'd say is this whole area. All the way down to the plaza. Lots of great galleries and restaurants and boutiques and different shops and bars and great fun things, and including the Ashland Springs Hotel right here, which is really a cool place. You can see that's really what Ashland is known for, in addition to the Lithia Park. Okay, Lithia Park is, I think, like 80 acres or 180 acres or something like that. It's big. It's right here in the middle of town. So if you can picture yourself, going out to one of the restaurants here in Ashland on the plaza, like maybe Scout Tap House, have a nice beer and whatever, hamburger or something, and then just a nice stroll through the Lithia Park, which has the creek running through it, Ashland Creek. It's really, really pretty. And so I'll show you some pictures and maybe some video of that, because I've done a lot of videos of Ashland and featured Lithia Park. But good options in terms of housing and stuff in Ashland. The houses on the hills and stuff are great. This whole area over here just off of the plaza is one of my favorite areas, off of Granite Street, and lots of good options there, including new developments and stuff kind of over on the other side of Ashland, up in this vicinity, and actually over here off of Coffee Lane and stuff. So good stuff going on there. It's kind of the general overview of Ashland. Definitely well known for being the cultural center of Southern Oregon, vibrant art scene going on there, college town, all the things that come along with that. But it's also slightly higher priced. It is probably the highest priced city in Southern Oregon, with the median price around the 600 range for comparable home to what you'd get in Medford for probably $450 or so. Definitely going to pay more to be in Ashland, but you're getting a totally different vibe. Politically, Ashland is much more liberal. It's really kind of the liberal pocket of Southern Oregon. It's kind of isolated in that sense, where the rest of Southern Oregon is much more conservative. And then you have Ashland as kind of the liberal hub, which, for better or worse, however you look at that, just kind of is what it is. But a lot of people that I know in Southern Oregon, myself included, love coming to Ashland for the restaurants and all the fun things to do. Okay, so whether doesn't matter kind of where you're at politically on that, but the key is that it's a place that people enjoy, no matter what your viewpoints are. It's a place that a lot of people come to enjoy, and come to mountain bike on the trails, or enjoy the restaurants, or enjoy a play, or go to catch a football game, or one of the sporting activities with college. So a lot of really fun stuff going on in Ashland. And the little kind of dirty little secret of Ashland that I would say, probably just the fact that the city council there tends to be pretty progressive in the types of things that they try to push across the city. And again, I'm not putting an opinion on that, whether I think that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's kind of a secret that not a lot of people know about. And it's things like trying to put a ban on natural gas. And I know there's people in Ashland that think that's fantastic, and I know there's people in Ashland that think that's terrible. Anyways, the city that's kind of been their approach. That's something that you probably aren't going to see talked about in many other places, but something you should be aware of if you were considering Ashland as a potential retirement destination. The little trick there is if you like Ashland and you want to be close to it, but you maybe don't want to be subject to some of the things that the city says or does or is trying to do, Talent is a nice option that's right outside of Ashland, that's more affordable, and just a quick drive right down the road, and a little closer proximity to Medford and all the medical and stuff that you have there. So that's a worthwhile option to consider, and as well as all the other areas kind of outside of Ashland, going up into the hills on either side. But as soon as you get outside of city limits, you get away from the city and the potential overreach there. So let's move on to the next city that we're going to talk about, and that is Grants Pass. Okay, so we're hopping over from Ashland and Medford area to Grants Pass, which is over in Josephine County. Okay, and so Grants Pass is really a beautiful, scenic, river town. You can see the Rogue River runs right through the middle of town here and on out. The Applegate River comes in over here, and so you get a lot of water sports and kind of that type of activity going on here. As you can see, as we zoom in on the map, you also have a lot of kind of farmland surrounding the area in Grants Pass, especially as you go west out towards the coast. Really, you can see the coast is over there. So Grants Pass, though, as a city, great river town. Again, that kind of slower pace of life, nice downtown area. G Street right here is full of amazing restaurants, including, you can see right there on the screen, the Bohemian. Right next to it is one of my favorites, which is called Lulu's. But there's great spots here. It's really kind of a lot of wonderful, restaurants and stuff right here. Corny Ghost, another good one, and the Hall. All those are really popular, good spots. And I'll give you one more that's just right off of it, and that is this right here, Steam Distillery. That place is fantastic. So I think Grants Pass is actually where I go more frequently than Medford or Ashland, because I just think it's a more kind of laid back vibe. It's easier to find parking here to go and enjoy some of these restaurants, whereas Ashland, you might have to park a ways away, but great spot. So the things that I think you're going to find in Grants Pass overall that you may not know about is it's a little bit more affordable than Medford and Ashland, quite a bit more affordable than Ashland. So the median home price is going to be, in that $450, maybe a little bit lower range, but you're going to get a little bit more house for that than you would in some of the parts of Medford. And what I think about in Grants Pass, as a comparison, is if you're familiar with Bend, Oregon, Redmond is right to the north of Bend, and Redmond experienced a significant amount of growth as Bend grew. And Grants Pass is kind of doing the same thing. Okay, so Grants Pass is growing significantly as Medford and Ashland grow. There's just going to be kind of more development going on here, and it tends to be a little bit more attainable for buyers. There's a lot of room for continued development over in the Redwood area. This is where a lot of it's been happening, is this kind of Redwood Highway area, but there'll continue to be more and more of that as the years go by. But I think of Grants Pass as a really good investment. I think of it as a place that's smart to park your money, because I think the market here is going to continue to go up and up in value. Okay, but what do you not know about Grants Pass? Again, what are they not telling you on all the other articles and all those sorts of things? And what I would say there is that Grants Pass probably is not as good for employment. So if you're trying to find good job opportunity and stuff like that, Grants Pass has some good options, but isn't going to be as plentiful as Medford or even Ashland, in my opinion. You do have some good things going on with the hospital and stuff. You do have a hospital here in Grants Pass, which is the Sante Three Rivers Medical Center. You do have plenty of other doctors and specialists in the area, like Ski Pediatric Clinic, the Women's Health Centers right here. And you have a lot of different places, like that in Grants Pass that you don't have to go all the way to Medford for. That being said, a lot of people still go all the way to Medford for those services. So being smaller as well, you tend to have less of the amenities in Grants Pass as you would find in Medford and surrounding areas there, Central Point and stuff. But you do end up with still, plenty of good opportunities like Walmart. You've got a Home Depot, Harbor Freight. So there's plenty of, bigger stores and stuff like that for, the different things that you'll need. But really, Grants Pass is kind of the place that people end up if you're wanting to, save a little bit more money, maybe be a little bit closer to the river for fishing or rafting and those sorts of things. Those are the kinds of people that tend to, gravitate more towards Grants Pass. Types of homes is going to be pretty plentiful. Again, from the newer development type homes that are being built over in this kind of Redwood Avenue area to, beautiful riverfront homes. There's lots of those as you go kind of more out in this way. Down the river, you'll see some really nice riverfront homes out in here, to more of the rural type places out Lower River Road and going out towards New Hope Road and Williams Highway. There's a lot of options like that. So if you're wanting, a couple acres or maybe even 1 acre so that you can have a garden and those sorts of things, you're going to have plenty of options like these that you're seeing right now in the Grants Pass area. Okay. And maybe even more so than what you can find in Jackson County. So anyways, Grants Pass, great option, wonderful place to go. And if you're looking for more, detailed information about the specifics of your situation, how Grants Pass or Ashland or Medford might, fit for you, call me. Again, I'm Brian Simmons with the Buying Southern Real Estate team. I'm a realtor in the area, happy to help you find, the perfect fit for you or your family, whatever the case is. So just don't hesitate to reach out. My number's on the screen right now. You can call me, you can text me, you can email me. I will personally answer. But let's move on to the next one. Okay. So that's Grants Pass. We're going to pop back over to Jackson County. We're going to talk about Central Point. Okay. Central Point is a really nice little town that I love. I think it's very popular for being very central, believe it or not. It's close to Interstate 5, as you'll see right there. Highway 99 is right here. And so it's very easy to go from Central Point and just pop on the freeway and be right into Medford. Or into South Bedford, or pop back on the freeway and go up towards Grants Pass that way. It's just an easy place to kind of get anywhere else in the valley. It's really close to the airport and close to Jacksonville, which you'll see right over here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Anyway, Central Point, very good little town in my opinion, known for the Twin Creeks neighborhood and its parks. Okay, lots of great parks in Central Point, like this Twin Creeks Park that you'll see right here, and the Jackson County Expo that you can see right here. My kids would know Central Point for the Rogue Valley Family Fun Center, which you see right there. But just a lot of fun stuff to do in Central Point, really. They have done a fantastic job, in my opinion, as a city of just kind of updating their downtown area, which is Pine Street right here. That they've done such a good job of updating that area over the years, with some nice good restaurants like the Point, and just kind of making sure all the new buildings or the older buildings are updated and given a little bit of a facelift. And so I think, in my mind, Central Point has done probably a better job than anywhere else in Southern Oregon over the last probably 20 years of modifying, and updating the city. Another little town that's done a good job of that as well, I think, is Rogue River, which we're not going to really go into much detail on, but this is the town that I live in. I love it. Grew up here. You've heard me probably talk about that on other videos, but another good option. We won't go into that one in detail today, but call me if you have questions on that, and I'd be happy to get into you. But back to Central Point. Great little suburb, just outside of Medford, very convenient location to everything, close to the airport, close to the medical, close to all the shopping. Costco is actually in Central Point. You can see right here, Costco's right there. This big building just below Costco is the Amazon whole warehouse. And anyways, a lot of good, opportunities in Central Point, lots of good development going on in Central Point. What would I say is the, dirty little secret of Central Point? Probably the fact that there is really not much a nightlife scene. There are some restaurants, there's the Point, but really aside from that, and a couple, other restaurants, there's like a couple good Mexican restaurants in Central Point up here, Mazatlan and Comal. Aside from that, there's really not a lot in Central Point in terms of restaurants. Okay, if you want to go out to eat and you live in Central Point, you're probably going into Medford or you're going into Jacksonville, more often than not. Okay, and that's something that you just, probably want to be aware of. I'm sure could find a little place here or there that you like, but it's really not a ton of options. And I just, think that's something to be aware of if you're considering Central Point. Let's pop over to our next one that we just kind of hinted at, and that is the city of Jacksonville. Okay, and Jacksonville is much smaller than many of the other towns that we've talked about on this list. It's actually where Southern Oregon began, and so Jacksonville was founded in 1853. Gold Rush town, and is known for just this really, really incredible downtown area, which is called California Street. And if you go to Bella Union, the Bella Union restaurant here, you'll see that street, and you can't help but want to walk up and down that street. It's just so cool, especially in the kind of holiday times of the year. They decorate it with lights and garland and all sorts of stuff and make it feel really, really festive. So I think that's a must do if you are coming to Southern Oregon, even just to visit and check out the areas. I always tell people you have to go see Jacksonville, go have dinner. There's a lot of great restaurants in Jacksonville, from Bella Union to Gogie's is one over here, to the Jacksonville Inn. C Street Bistro is fantastic. There's some really, really good options I'm sure you can find on Yelp or Google, but those are some of my favorites. So Jacksonville, awesome town, historic town, beautiful. You get lots of great homes like these Noonan Square up here. These homes are all decorated in kind of like a Victorian craftsman style, and all built like that. So you get some great options like those, or you get, over in the hills over here off of Stagecoach, you get some kind of bigger homes with views. And back over on this side, like 3rd Street and Oregon Street, you got some more of the original homes from back in the 1800s that have been restored. And also downtown in this area, you get some of that as well. So really a huge mix of places in Jacksonville. If you want to be, right outside of Jacksonville, there's options as well, going either way. But great proximity to vineyards. Danson Vineyard is one of the more popular ones in the area. They have a fantastic tasting room where you can go and hang out and enjoy, some good wine and some appetizers or charcuterie board or whatever. But lots of people go there. I've been there a number of times. I love it. It's fantastic. But there's plenty others all around. Another one of my favorites is right up here, and it's called Hummingbird. And I talk about that on some of the other videos. But Hummingbird Estate is a lovely vineyard, beautiful. It's this image isn't updated enough. This is all through here is all vines. It's really, really a pretty setting because it's up on the hill and it overlooks the Rogue Valley. So that's a pretty one. But again, Jacksonville as a town is really awesome. A lot of great things going for it, like I mentioned. But what is kind of the dirty little secret that you don't know about Jacksonville that you're not able to find out? What I would say is that it just doesn't really have as many of the amenities that people want in their town right there. I mean, you have a grocery store, but it doesn't and I think you have a little hardware store in there too. But if you want, other things, doctor's offices and stuff, you'll have some of those in Jacksonville. But for the most part, you're going to have to go into Medford, which isn't a terribly long drive. You're probably 10 to 20 minutes to Medford. That's kind of the worst part about Jacksonville, I would say. It's just you have to go into Medford to get to those things. The only other thing I would say is you do get a pretty good amount of tourist traffic in Jacksonville. Not a lot of like car traffic necessarily, but it is touristy, especially when you get the Brit Festival going on. And that's what you see right here. This is a outdoor concert venue called the Brit Gardens, and every year there's the Brit Festival that lasts for months, and it is very cool. Lots of incredible artists come here and they play in this outdoor venue, and you can get a blanket and bring your own food and everything, I believe, still, and sit in these up on the grass here and watch the concert. It's really, really a spectacular venue. But you probably won't hear on other places that does kind of come with some noise, right? So if you live in, the close proximity to the Brit Gardens, you're going to hear those concerts that go on. I think they have to stop at 9 or 10 o'clock or whatever it is, but you're going to hear that music if you're near the Brit Gardens, and some people don't like that. So those are the only things I could knock Jacksonville for. I feel like it's getting pretty picky because it's one of my favorite towns in Southern Oregon. Jacksonville's the second most expensive part of Southern Oregon, right on par with Ashland, definitely more expensive. So that's something to be aware of as well if you're considering Jacksonville. So on to the next one, which is going to be Eagle Point, just north of Medford. It's on Highway 62, which is also called Crater Lake Highway. And so a little bit outside of the Medford area. But what Eagle Point's known for is having kind of a little more of like the rural lifestyle, a little more laid back. You see all these kind of farms around out in here. You see the golf course, which is also one of the things it's really well known for. This is the Eagle Point Golf Course. Okay, so if you're looking for a golf community, Eagle Point is about as good as it gets. It's really Eagle Point or the Medford Country Club, the Rogue Valley Country Club, which is like we talked about right here. You can see there's homes around the Rogue Valley Country Club. And actually one of the things that's coming is the Centennial. It's my favorite golf course in Southern Oregon. There are going to be homes built in here. That's coming. I don't know when specifically. I've heard that it's going to be within the next few years. It's 2024 as I record this, very almost 2025. It'll probably be 2025 when this is launched, But the rumor is that the construction is going to start here 2025, 2026, somewhere in that range. So depending on when you're watching videos, this may or may not be available. There could be some development going on there if you're looking for the golf community. Sorry about the tangent there off of Eagle Point, but thought that was worth mentioning. So Eagle Point does have a lot going for it in terms of the golf community. It does have, shopping in terms of like a Walmart Supercenter right there. It's pretty easy to get into Medford, although it is about a 20-minute, just kind of right down Highway 62. To get to the hospital, you're probably 20 to 30 minutes over in here. And so those are some things to be aware of. I mean, it is a little bit further away than like Central Point or Jacksonville even, or Ashland. A little further away from the medical facilities and stuff like that. But Eagle Point's a great little town. Very, very popular. Definitely, that more laid back lifestyle, more rural, similar to Grants Pass in the sense like if you want to have a place with a few acres, to have a garden, or maybe you have a horse or whatever the case is, Eagle Point's definitely one of the towns that I would suggest looking at for those reasons, if that's what you're after. A little bit longer commute to Medford, like we said, but I would say probably the biggest thing if you're trying to pick out like what is the dirty little secret of Eagle Point, I would say similar to Central Point, there's really not a lot of that kind of restaurant type. I don't want to call that like nightlife, but not a lot of like, good restaurants or anything. You have, a couple restaurants in Eagle Point, but really not much going on there. So to go out to dinner, you're either going to into Medford, which, like I said, it was probably 20 minutes or so, or you're going up to Shady Cove. There's some good restaurants on the river up there, but really Eagle Point just doesn't really have a whole lot in that regard, other than maybe a couple little spots. So that's something to be aware of if that's what you want, just kind of right outside your door. If you're open to driving 20 minutes or so to get to a good restaurant, then Eagle Point won't be a problem. But that is something to keep in mind. And it's something you're probably not going to be seeing or reading about many other places other than here. So let's move to the last city on our list that we're going to talk about. And I discussed it briefly earlier, and that is the city of Talent. Okay. So Talent lands kind of smack between Medford and Ashland. And it is really kind of well known for, kind of infamous, to be honest with you, for the fire that came through just a couple years ago, 2020. The fire came through, burnt 2,000 homes in Talent and Phoenix, and just kind of ripped right through here and caused a lot of devastation. And so that's what Talent has been known for. But what is kind of the good news, there's been a lot of redevelopment. A lot of things have been built back and built really nice. So a lot of new construction here available in Talent that's available. So if you're wanting new community and everything looking new, Talent's kind of one of the areas that you can find that. Price point's going to be competitive again in the 400, 450, 500 range, kind of a wide range depending on the specific area that you're looking. But the great thing about Talent, what it's really very popular for, is the proximity to Ashland. And so what you end up seeing is a lot of people who want to be in Ashland but aren't able to pay Ashland prices, they end up looking in Talent. And it's just a few minute drive right down the street and you're in it in Ashland. But Talent also is getting a better reputation for its little downtown area. Like it has some good little restaurants and stuff here. The Pump House and Clyde's Corner are both popular places that are getting a lot more attraction and stuff. So I think Talent's a cool little town. I think it's growing. It's also a good proximity to I-5. It's popular for sure. It's also closer to the hospital system and everything in Medford than many of the other options that we talked about. So not a bad place at all. And again, if you're looking for places where you can have a couple acres, all this area like outside of Talent, there's a lot of options out there as well. So I think Talent's a very underrated town. I think there's a lot of good things going on there, and it kind of checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people, but you just don't really hear about it a lot. So it's something that, if you're looking at relocating to Southern Oregon or retiring to Southern Oregon, Talent's probably an area that depending on the specifics of what you're looking for. It's something that I would suggest checking out for sure. Again, if you are, just unsure of which of these towns makes the most sense for you in Southern Oregon, because there are so many options, looking into, Medford and Grants Pass and Ashland and Central Point, all these places that we talked about, it can get confusing. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of, intricate little details, and we haven't even talked about little towns like I talked, briefly about Rogue River. We didn't talk much about Applegate and Jacksonville or Shady Cove. There's a lot of these little places like that are also really, really incredible, that have their own little, secrets, both good and bad, that you may want to know about if you're considering moving to Southern Oregon.
You're thinking about retirement life in Oregon and maybe even wondering, what is Oregon's best retirement town? Well, you're in the right place, because we're going to talk all about retiring in Southern Oregon with a focus on the areas around Medford, Oregon that are just flat out better than the rest of the state for retirement. And that's a big claim. So let me explain why that is. Hey, I'm Brian Simmons. I'm a 30-plus year resident and real estate agent here in Southern Oregon. And while I may not be of the retirement age yet, I do happen to help a lot of folks who are to buy, sell, and invest in the Southern Oregon real estate market. So if that's something that I can help you with, you can reach out to me directly at 541-954-7758 with a call or text, or there's a link in the description of this video that you can click on and schedule a time for us to meet online face-to-face. Okay, so why in the world would I say that Southern Oregon is better for retirement than the rest of the state? We're going to review plenty of specifics like weather and cost of living and activities, but what makes the Medford, Oregon area Oregon's best retirement town is simply the fact that it falls right in the sweet spot of every category that we're going to explore. Let me explain. So I did a bunch of research online and I found data to compare Medford with Portland, Eugene, and Bend, Oregon. And I think those are the best examples of places to compare to. And you may be wondering about places like Salem, Oregon, or Corvallis, Oregon, or some of the others, but those are the main ones that we're going to look at today, because places like Salem get lumped in with Portland when you're looking at the data, and places like Corvallis, for example, gets lumped in with Eugene when you're looking at the data. So we're going to try to focus on those main hubs that are very different: Medford versus Bend versus Eugene versus Portland. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the data and I'll show you what it says. Okay, if we start out by looking at just the overall cost of living index, and this information is coming from bestplaces.net, and they do a very comprehensive job of analyzing the data in these various markets. And so what you're looking at here is the cost of living of the major areas that we discussed, which is Medford, which comes in at a 102.3. And what that number is the number relative to the national average. So you can see Medford is slightly above the national average at 102.3, whereas the national average would be 100. Okay, so we're just slightly above that, but as you can tell, we're significantly below Portland, which is 132.4. You can see Eugene is 107.3 and Bend is 131.3. So Medford is significantly less expensive as a cost of living measurement that you can see here. So definitely the least expensive of all these four cities, as said by bestplaces.net cost of living index. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more specifically and look at the median home price. Okay, and again, as you can see, Medford comes in, according to the same source, at $376,700 for the median home price, and this may be as of 2022, I think, is what their data had said. So either way, it's all relevant because we're looking at it as a comparison to the others. Okay, so Medford 376, Portland 537,200, Eugene 458,500, and then Bend over $666,000 for the median home price. So certainly some beautiful homes in Bend, but really, what you're seeing there is a nice 3-bed, 2-bath home in Bend is just significantly more expensive than it is in Medford, and that's not even necessarily for a better quality home. It's just that things are just in that much demand up there and just that much more expensive. So again, Medford coming in as the least expensive for median home price. And then carrying on to food and groceries, it's pretty much a wash across the board here. You can see Medford 100.5, and the most expensive is Portland at 103.7. So really not a significant difference there. Nothing to write home about. I don't think anyone's going to make a decision on where to retire based on a insignificant difference in food and grocery costs like you see there. So let's call that one a wash. Transportation costs though, wow. Medford comes in way below the national average at an 80.3. Portland comes in way above the national average at 129.9. And Eugene and Bend are both in kind of the, Eugene in the upper 80s, Bend in the lower 80s, but all of them, again, more than Medford, Oregon. So transportation, Medford is the clear winner on that one again. And then we go in and look at the weather, okay? And so this is looking at rainfall. And this is a big misconception of Southern Oregon and the Medford Grants Pass area, is that people think that it's like the other parts of Oregon, and it's just not. You can see here we average 23 inches of rainfall a year, which is almost half that of Portland, and less than half of that of Eugene. So we're significantly less in terms of rainfall of both of those, but more than Bend. Okay, so Bend, Oregon does not get a lot of rain. It's in the east of the Cascades, which is in the high desert climate, so it's much more arid, much less rain over there. But with that comes a lot of other things like just the dryness and the all the different plants and stuff that grow over there. It's much different. So trying to garden over there versus over here, it's a lot different experience. So I think Medford's kind of right in that sweet spot there. 23 inches of rain is on par with areas like Sacramento, California, and stuff like that. So we're much more like Sacramento, California in terms of rainfall than we are Portland and Eugene, which is what a lot of people think of when they think Oregon. They think rain, and that's what you're going to get in Portland and Eugene. I lived in Eugene for 4 years, and so I know this 47 inches of annual rainfall. I know it well, and it's kind of miserable in my opinion. But looking at snowfall, so you saw that Bend had the least amount of rainfall, but it actually averages 21 inches of snowfall per year, as compared to Medford, Portland, and Eugene all average about 3. So again, you hop over to the east side of the Cascades and it snows. I mean, it snows a lot. 21 inches of snow is a pretty good amount. So if you're thinking about retiring in Oregon, if you want to spend your days shoveling snow, Bend's a great place to do it. If you want to spend your days not doing that and outside doing fun activities that I'm going to tell you more about here in a few seconds, Medford is going to give you a lot more time to do that, because you're not going to be trying to shovel your way out of your driveway during the winter months. But looking at sunny days, this is another one. This actually kind of surprised me. Not that Medford had 195 sunny days a year, but the fact that Medford was above Bend, because I know Bend is known for being very sunny. Like we talked about, it doesn't have a lot of rainfall that you noticed on the last chart we showed a couple charts ago. Not a lot of rainfall over in Bend, so I expected to see them have a higher number of sunny days. And anyways, this data is again from bestplaces.net, so this is their number. I'm just sharing it with you, but they came in at 162, and then Eugene in 155, Portland 144, Medford 195. So again, we're much sunnier, more sunny days than Portland and Eugene. And this 162 on Bend is a little surprising to me. So I'll tell you though, I think Bend is sunnier than that, on par probably with Medford. But anyways, that's maybe something you want to research a little bit more, but this is the number that the bestplaces.net website showed. So then if we look at the high temps, and this is where Medford steps kind of apart a little bit from the other areas, is that Medford is hotter. Okay, so the high temperature average in July is 90 degrees. And then in Portland and Eugene, it's in the low 80s, and in Bend in the low 80s as well. So definitely a little bit warmer here, but not unbearable. Okay, the average high is 90, and so that's it's not like you're in Phoenix, Arizona, or Las Vegas, or even in Northern California areas like Redding, where it gets very hot. We don't get quite to those levels here. We'll have some few days out of the year where we're breaking 100, but it's not every day like it is in some of those other cities. So very tolerable and manageable here at 90 for the average July high temperature. And then if we conversely kind of look at the opposite end of the spectrum and look at the low for January, the average low temp, and so this isn't the average temp throughout the day, this is the average low in January. In Medford is 31, Portland 36, Eugene 34, and Bend 24. And so what the context I like to provide here is that 31 being the low, that's only for like a couple hours super early in the morning, and then it tends to heat up pretty good. And so I think the average high in those times of year. If I remember right, when I looked last time in another one of my videos, I believe it was in the 50s, in the low 50s. So anyways, you do get warmed up enough to be able to go outside and enjoy some different activities and stuff. And again, we'll explain some of those, what the options are here in Southern Oregon for all those activities. But just know that like the weather year round is very manageable and doesn't, force you to be indoors. Whereas in Bend, you're going to be dealing with, temperatures in the 20s and like I said, the 20 plus inches of snow. And Portland and Eugene, you're going to have all that rainfall. So this is kind of showing you why I believe this is really in the sweet spot, like I mentioned. And those are the charts that I want to share with you. So hopefully that provides you with some good context as to what I meant by it being the Medford area being in that sweet spot. The cost of living is better, the climate is more desirable to a lot of people, much less rainfall than Portland and Eugene, less snow than Bend, but a little bit more heat in the summer. So yeah, that's up to you to decide if that's a trade-off you want to have, but a lot of people are deciding to do that. And so I mentioned the outdoor activities, and that's one of the nice things about this area is there's just so many options for things to do outdoors when you're retired, or even indoors. And we're going to talk about a lot of those. But the outdoor activities really steal the show because there's just so many things to do and places to go for an easy hike or bike or kayaking or paddleboarding and so much more. So a couple of my favorites for those types of things would be like paddleboarding or kayaking on Immigrant Lake or Applegate Lake. Or hiking the trail around Roxanne Mountain, or the Jacksonville trails over there around the Brick Gardens, or even just a stroll through the town of Jacksonville is really, really special. There's great skiing at Mount Ashland and camping and backpacking all through the different national forests and stuff around here, which if you're more of an outdoorsman and you're into that type of stuff, fishing on the famous Rogue River for salmon or steelhead is absolutely legendary. You can fly fish or go get a guide and float a drift boat, or you can go fish the local lakes for bass or trout, or all sorts of different types of fishing. So a lot of options there, and hunting too, deer, elk, turkey, and all sorts of different birds there. And I can promise, if you're into those types of things, you will never run out of options for places to go do that and fun things to go do in those regards. But maybe you're not into the outdoor stuff and you're more interested in the arts. And if that's the case, great. There are so many options for those types of things around here in Southern Oregon, like the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, which is unbelievable. There's tons of different types of plays that they do there, and it's an absolutely incredible Elizabethan theater that is amazing. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, you have got to check out the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. The Criterion Theater in Medford is fantastic as well, and the Brit Festival in Jacksonville, if you're interested in live music, is wonderful. And if those things don't take up all your time, then you got to check out all the countless art galleries around Southern Oregon. You can spend a lifetime just going from gallery to gallery in Jacksonville and Ashland and Medford and all these different places and just exploring the different works of the local artists. Since this is a video about retirement living in Southern Oregon, I would be remiss to not mention golfing, okay? And what better way to enjoy all of those sunny days that we experience here in Southern Oregon than playing around a golf on one of the beautiful golf courses we have here in the Medford, Oregon area. Like Centennial Golf Club in Medford is unbelievable. It's one of my favorites because it has nice, big, wide fairways, and it's really a very well-kept, beautiful course. As is Eagle Point Golf Club. It's a very nice course. The Rogue Valley Country Club is incredible too. So any one of those really a fantastic option to go out and play some golf. And if you're looking for a home or a golf community where you can have your house on the golf course, Eagle Point Golf Club and the Rogue Valley Country Club are going to be probably your two best options there. There's a couple others that you might be able to take a look at, but those are really the two main ones. And so Eagle Point Golf Club, Rogue Valley Country Club are both great options for if you're wanting to go into the golf community living type of a situation. Another great option that gets you outdoors but not really into the active stuff is wine tasting, okay? And there are so many local vineyards here that have amazing clubs that you can join and participate in the different exclusive events and the dinners and the parties that they have. It's really a ton of fun, and there's a countless amount of just stunning properties, vineyard properties that you would never ever get tired of looking at and exploring, like Hummingbird,
Irvine and Roberts, Cressell Cellars, Del Rio, Red Lily, Roxanne, Schmidt Family Vineyards. I could go on and on forever, but some of those are just unbelievably beautiful. You can sit out on their big deck and just soak in the views of the area, drinking a nice glass of wine and having some, snacks and appetizers. It's just such a fun experience, and that's something that is a favorite thing for a lot of the locals around here, is just to go out to their favorite vineyard and hang out for a few hours and enjoy those sights and sounds and just relax on a weekend. It's really a fun thing to do, and I couldn't think of a better way to spend some days in retirement life by doing that. But maybe you're more of an explorer and you want to get out there and see the different sites and everything of the region. And if that's the case, the Medford area is a wonderful spot to launch from to get to a lot of the different sites that you're going to want to see, like Crater Lake National Park, the Oregon Coast, the Oregon Caves National Monument, Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest, and there are just so many other countless areas like that you've got to see if you are into taking pictures and photography and those sorts of things, or painting nature and stuff like that. There's so many options for places like that where you can go for a day to explore, or even go overnight if you're into camping and you have an RV or tent or whatever you want to do. There's a lot of those different areas like that are just a lot of fun to go explore, and they're absolutely beautiful. That's one of the great things about this area, is we're surrounded by mountains. To the east we have the Cascade Range, to the west we have the Coastal Range, and to the south we have the Siskiyous. And so there's a lot of mountains around here, and that creates a lot of opportunity to do these wonderful activities and just get out there and explore and be in nature. It's really, really one of my favorite things. As you can see, there is no shortage of things to do in Southern Oregon, no matter what kind of lifestyle you live. So I'm going to share a few other fun facts with you that I know are important for you to know. So the availability of good medical care is the next thing that I want to address. And so there are 4 hospitals in Southern Oregon, and 3 of those are part of the Asante Hospital System, which has been rated in the top 15 in the nation for the last 10 years, okay? And there are also loads of other really, really talented specialists at places like Southern Oregon Orthopedics and the Medical Eye Center of Southern Oregon. So with all these great talented specialists and great medical care that we have here locally, it's pretty uncommon to have to go see a specialist in another area. But in the event that does happen, which it does, of course, from time to time, Portland, there's OHSU, which is Oregon Health and Sciences University. It's only about a 4-hour drive away, or an hour flight. So that is there, and that's an option if necessary. But from what I understand of my own experiences and with all of my clients and my friends and my family and all that, the need to have to go out of the Southern Oregon area is pretty uncommon. And that brings me to my next point, which is the location of Medford, Oregon is just so convenient, okay? Interstate 5 runs right through it, which is the main interstate that runs north-south from Mexico to Canada. And there's other major highways that run through here, like Highway 199 that runs towards the Oregon coast, where you can then take the popular 101 up or down the Pacific coast, again all the way down into California, all the way up into Washington, or you can travel east on Highway 140 to go see the beautiful high desert like we talked about in the Bend area, or Klamath Falls, going over to Burns, or even further over to Idaho if you wanted to, traveling all over to the east through the high desert. So that's really pretty. A lot of fun stuff to do over there as well. And that's one of the things that I really like about having these highways and the interstate here, is that it just makes so many of these destinations very accessible, okay, with a quick getaway. And you could be over in Bend or the coast or whatever, and that's all not very difficult to do, just a few hours either way, okay? But if you want something a little further away, the Rogue Valley International Airport has direct flights to several major hubs like Seattle and Portland and San Francisco and LA and Salt Lake City and Denver and Phoenix and Vegas, and I'm probably forgetting some, but you can get to a lot of places with a direct flight, and you can get almost anywhere on Earth with a single layover. So it's pretty cool to have that nice little hub here. It's a nice newer airport. It was built, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. And really a nice, easy, accessible airport. You don't have to get there 2 hours ahead of time. You can literally, if you're carrying on your luggage, you can literally walk in, 45 minutes beforehand, go right through and be fine. I've done it plenty of times. So speaking of getting around, it's really easy to actually get around in Southern Oregon, okay? The size is small enough to where traffic really isn't an issue. It's nice and easy to get from point A to point B with all those interstates and highways. So no matter if you're going from,
the east side of town to the west side, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. If you're going from somewhere like Ashland to Medford or Medford to Grants Pass or any of those, that's all very, very easy to do. Okay, I'm sure you're probably thinking right now that this is all so amazing, but what kind of home can I get for my money? That's a very common question that comes up, especially with people who are not from the area. So of course that's going to depend on your budget. But if you're looking for, let's say, a 3-bed, 2-bath, single level home with a low maintenance yard, close to the shopping and medical and all that, you can find that type of home, a nice well-kept home like that, under $500,000. Okay, and like anywhere, the sky's the limit. You can find nice homes that meet your needs in the 300s, or you can find beautiful riverfront estates for millions of dollars. Okay, and really everything in between. And that's one of the great things about this area, is there's such a variety of the types of homes, the types of living that you can do here. If you want a half an acre outside of town where you can have a little garden, great, that exists. If you want a big 100-acre plus property with privacy and no neighbors in sight, great, that also exists. So does a small, 1920s cottage. So does, all the different things you could ever imagine exist here. So lots of great options on the housing side of things. And if you have questions about that, again, I'm more than happy to answer them if you reach out. So now I hope it's a little more clear to you why I believe Medford, Oregon is Oregon's best retirement town. It's not too big, it's not too small, it's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's just right in so many ways, and that's what makes it such a wonderful place to live. This is a story you cannot miss, especially if you're thinking about relocating or even retiring here to Southern Oregon, because we're going to talk to some folks who did that exact thing and moved here from another state, and they're going to share with you their experience of being here in Southern Oregon for the last year. So let's go hop inside and have a conversation. Well, why don't we just start with the beginning of you guys' journey then to kick things off. So maybe you guys can set the stage a bit for us. Where were you living? What was going on in your life in general? And just what kind of got you thinking about making a move at all?
Well, hello, Jan and Chris. My husband and I are native Californians. In fact, I have a pioneer grandmother who crossed into California in 1850. We met at the University of California. We've been together 42 years. We settled in Walnut Creek, California, which is a lovely place. It has great weather and low crime and great schools. And we were very comfortable there. We raised our daughter there. We were very involved in our community. My husband was in sports, and I was a scout leader and on a lot of boards and a room mother, that kind of thing. And then our daughter graduated in 2020, and it became time for her to look for schools. So she chose the University of Oregon, which is Go Ducks, and it was a great fit for her, and we were thrilled that she got in. And about that time, my husband, who works at the post office, was working crazy hours due to COVID, and he was headed into retirement, and I got bought out. So I had a lot of time at home to plan our next adventure. And for 20 years, we'd had a lot of the same things, the same jobs, same house, same friends, same school. And I think it was sort of that pioneer grandmother who said now, and also things had changed in our home state too. There's just a lot of people chasing not a lot of assets. So, and we also wanted kind of a quieter pace of life. We lived across from a middle school at that time, so we wanted something completely different. And where were you?
Well, working in the Postal Service, I was outside predominantly and enjoyed the weather in Northern California and Bay Area, to be specific, and was looking for something that had good weather. And there's a banner in Grants Pass that says, "It's the climate."
That's right.
And we have been here one full year now. We've seen every season. And the climate is close to what California has to offer where we were from. So we're very pleased with that. You do have all 4 seasons here. And because I predominantly spent most of my time working outside and spending time outside, golfing and playing softball and biking and hiking, I wanted to duplicate that where I moved next. And we settled on Southern Oregon. And Grants Pass was everything we were looking for, size-wise and location-wise. So here we are, Grants Pass residents.
Yeah. So it was kind of a combination of things, the retirement and then,
just change of pace and all of those, right? From understanding, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So in that process, then when you guys have made the decision, like, okay, look, we're ready for a change. We want to do something different. We're, tired of Walnut Creek or, the whole area, whatever the case being. Like, I guess talk me through that process. Like, how did you start evaluating areas? How did you come to discover Southern Oregon?
Well, that's a great question, Brian. We had two states that we were looking closely at, one being Tennessee and the other being Oregon. And I have to say, when we were young, we would come up to the Rogue and go kayaking and go to Ashland. And we're definitely river people. And every time we would drive to visit our daughter at Eugene, we would just be struck by the beauty when you come down to the hill into the valley. And I still love the view of the valley. We also thought about Tennessee, and we have family in Nashville, but we were always a little concerned that, your accent, we're always going to be the other there, Southern culture being what it is. They really want to know who you're from and where you're from and who your people are, kind of thing. And we felt like we could assimilate a lot better on the West Coast, particularly in Southern Oregon. And we liked the size of Grants Pass. It's not too big, not too small. Things are just a lot easier here, parking and just, if we go to a restaurant, we can get a table, that kind of thing. It's just easier. When you're older, you want things easier.
I'm excited to talk more about the assimilation piece because we'll definitely get into that here in a little bit. But in terms of like deciding on the area, you mentioned you guys have been here previously. Was there a point in time where you remember deciding like Southern Oregon is it? Like that's where we're going?
Well, it's kind of interesting. We sort of had a hard deadline. What we did is we purposely had a 3-year plan. So we sold our house in Walnut Creek, kind of near the top of the market. So I was happy about that. But we weren't quite ready to retire. So we just rented for a year or two while my husband finished his work and I was doing some part-time consulting. But then our landlord decided they wanted to sell the house, which was great. We had a good relationship with them, but then we had a hard deadline. So we really had to pull the trigger. And previously we had come up one summer to Grants Pass just to stay at a hotel and get a feel for it. So, we went to restaurants like the Laughing Clan and talked to people about what it was like to live here. And we went to the farmer's market and we were here for a smoke day. So we kind of had to feel, what we were getting into. So by the time we had to really find a place with like a month deadline, we had pretty much settled on Grants Pass, right? And we had been, watching Zillow and looking at videos, like your video. We would watch those pretty religiously. And that's kind of how we became aware of you for those great videos.
I do remember we took a driving vacation up 101 Northern California that brought us into Grants Pass, Highway 199. And we came through Grants Pass and we were like, isn't that beautiful? Look at all those homes with the Rogue River right in their backyard. Wouldn't that be a nice place to live, visit? And lo and behold, 15 years later, we were actually making that move. And we thought it was beautiful then. And as you drive from California to Oregon on Highway 5, you come down through the Siskiyou Mountains. You see the Ashland mountain ski area coming down this huge mountain to get into Ashland, and it's just a beautiful sight. There's like a valley coming off the mountain, and we would drive through Ashland, going north through Medford, and about 30 minutes from Medford, you come into this mountainous area with trees everywhere and beautiful forests, and all of a sudden there's this city or town, big area where you're like want to explore. And you saw the river that went through it, and it kind of attracted us to the area. And then once again, we were looking at Zillow, we were looking at Brian's videos, and we set up a several days where we came up and took a look at houses and fell in love with it.
Yeah. So that's kind of exactly where we're just going to go. So I'm glad you said that, because the question I'm going to ask is, so you kind of, made your guys' decision, you evaluated and, of course, I'm sure had your conversations and ultimately ruled out Tennessee and decided like we're going to pursue Southern Oregon. But I know there's a lot of people that are watching this that are probably in a similar position where they're like, is Southern Oregon the place? I'm hearing about smoky summers or homelessness or whatever the case may be as potential negatives. And so it's obviously great to hear all these, positives from your guys' experience. But, for the folks that are in that position of evaluating, what was your next step to kind of actually start to pursue it?
Well, since we had a firm deadline, we contacted Brian, and I'm sure he thought we were crazy because we said we have a list of 13 houses we want to see, and we have a 3-day window. And he was wonderful. He's like, okay, let's go. He didn't question it at all. And I also remember telling you that we were really nice, but we were going to be really picky because this was our dream house. And, you just get to a point. And it wasn't our first time in real estate. I had sold houses I was a church trustee. But we didn't know everything about Oregon, obviously. So I just told him we're going to have a lot more questions, and someone who, grew up here and knows the neighborhoods. And he was totally fine with that and very customer service oriented, which was great. And he never made me feel like I had a stupid question. Although I'm sure he thought there were times and I have to be honest, we were definitely city people. And we were looking at some pretty rural properties. So there was a lot, you just don't know what you don't know until you ask the question. Like I remember him explaining to me about wells. And he said, I was a little concerned about wells. And he's like, basically, it's just a hole in the ground. So it's not like something bad's going to happen. And that was helpful to me.
Yeah. I mean, bad things can happen with wells, but it's pretty rare. I mean, it's going to collapse or what could happen, really. Right. So there's always a fix, and something like that. So it's a lot of times that comes up with people, again, like you said, that are unfamiliar and same with septic systems. People are not familiar with the septic system. So I don't want anything to do with the septic system. They don't understand, how long lasting they are, how clean they are,
right.
The whole thing. They're great. No cost, other than getting it pumped out every few years and that kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of those things that people just don't, they've never had the exposure. Right. So of course they don't understand.
But if you ever hear a loud alarm at 2 a.m., that could be your septic alarm, and they don't turn off.
That's your float in your septic tank that was wrapped improperly. So you
get out the hard way.
So you get to learn about your septic. Fortunately, with septics, we have a sister-in-law who's very familiar with them. We can call her. She lives in Pennsylvania. But with septics, it's roughly 2 to 3 years, depending on how much use and how big your family is. Then you have to really be concerned about having it cleared out,
right?
Pumped out.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's wonderful not having a water and sewage bill.
Yes. No, exactly. I answer that question all the time. Just how much is the water bill and those sorts of things, sewer bill and all that. And it's like, hey. Depends, right? If we're in the city or if we're in the county.
That's right.
It's septic or if you have city services.
That's a good point.
But yeah, so I want to get back to the home search real quick, because I remember in the beginning, and you kind of alluded to it as we started to search, we were looking at some places that were absolute no's. And we got out there and you're like, whoa, this is, I can hear the banjos playing in the background.
I don't know if I ever said that.
Shady cove.
But we're just talking about how we ran into a grow house accidentally, and I did make Brian go first because I was terrified.
Yeah, so there was, that stuff happens. But I remember there was one in particular that we actually did a virtual showing on, the place on the river. And did, I think, another virtual showing on, and you guys were really excited about it, and then ultimately decided against it. But I just was thinking that'd be a good, story to tell, because a lot of folks go through a similar thing where they're thinking, hey, this could be the one, and then ultimately, there's something that is kind of a hang up. And so just wanted maybe you explain that a little bit. And what ultimately got you to decide to not pursue that, and whether you have any regrets.
Well, one of the things we were very interested in is living on the river. It had always been a dream of mine. And as I mentioned, we're river people, and we still kayak, and we love to swim in rivers. In our price point, a lot of the houses we were looking at were not, they needed some work. And at our point in life, we didn't mind doing routine things like roofs and stuff, but we didn't want to spend years in construction. So that was an issue. And we did look at one lovely house, the one Brian talked about, that we were very excited about. And the problem is it was a gorgeous house, but on a very small patch of land. So we were quite crowded in, and it was just a little more closeness than we wanted. So, and I remember you telling me maybe, to be on the river in the kind of house you want, it's just going to be probably over $1 million. And we didn't want to quite spend that much. So fortunately, the house we bought still has a culvert, so we get to hear beautiful rain and creek, and we can get to the river in pretty much 5 minutes if we care to.
We do have a waterfront property with our creek, so we got the water.
Sometimes more waterfront than others.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, because I know you guys. Well, yeah, let's go into that because we're already there. So you guys have been here for over a year now, and so let's talk about what life has been like being rural property owners. I would call this rural, 4 acres. We're 10, 15 minutes outside of town. So awesome piece of property, but obviously much different than what you were experiencing in Walnut Creek. So with the water issues, what have been some of those surprises that you guys have experienced here?
So in Walnut Creek and some of the areas we lived in the Bay Area, we had about a third of an acre, maybe a little more, a little less. We now have 4 acres, so it was quite a dramatic change. We have a creek that runs through our property, and we are the second owners of this particular home. The original owner passed away, and we got the house through a probate sale. So there were some things in a probate sale that the previous owners or previous family that represented and worked with other realtors didn't know about the house. So that was a little bit of a mystery. So we had to learn as we went, electrical systems, sewer systems, plumbing, wells. So that was, coming from the city into the country, it was a little bit daunting. And we had a culvert that goes under the main road that leads to our house. And it was showing its age, with a little bit of deterioration from some of the previous high water that they had. So we had it worked on for a professional contractor and shored it up and saw the beautiful work that he did, and then promptly had a 5 inches of rain come down in, I think, 10 or 11 hours, and saw that our culvert really needed that work before all the flooding came. But the house stood its ground quite well. So we've experienced a pretty good winter up to this point with we get 6 inches of snow and 5 inches of rain. Thank you, Mother Nature, and atmospheric rivers.
Yeah. I hope it wasn't one of those conversations we had where I was like, don't worry about snow or the rain. It doesn't snow much. And then we get, of course, the year where we get, I think we had 7 inches in Medford in one day. It was like one of the top 10 recorded snow events of all time in a 24-hour period. And then we've had an extremely wet winter this year. Like you said, we're way above like 160% of our average, I think is what I had seen the other day. And so hopefully I didn't tell you guys.
No, actually, the first year I found it super exciting just to have change. And the snow would come, but it wouldn't really stick, or it'd just be 3 inches. And, the rain I was prepared for. And it's blazing hot in the summer, which I love because I'm used to it. And so it's been really nice having 4 seasons. It's just anything that happens extreme here, like the snow, like we didn't even have snow tires. So we definitely are going to be purchasing another vehicle very shortly. And I have to admit, here it is April, and I am starting to miss the sun on my face. So I'm looking forward to spring. But you had mentioned about what it was like when we first moved here. And there's been some great surprises. Like we have herds of elk on our property, and they're so majestic, and I get so excited every single time I see them. And I always hope when my friends visit me that the elk are going to appear, but they kind of come at their own, schedule. The first 2 months was definitely a siege against nature. We had carpenter ants, we had skunks. I was ready to tear up the foundation because there was a smell of rotting corpse, and I really thought maybe an animal had crawled into their house. Well, come to find out it was a hawthorn tree, which for 2 months, that's what it smells like. It's called a corpse tree too. And fortunately, a friend who knows about botany set me straight before I dug up the foundation. But we persevered, and here it is a year later, and we feel like we know what we need to know. And we also didn't know with property. We just thought if you weren't growing anything, there wouldn't be a lot of work, but there's more to it. There's mowing at certain times. There's clearing trees for fire, so we feel like we know a lot more about that.
And I want to give a thank you to Chris at Critter Getters for capturing the one female skunk we had under our deck and making it look easy where it was causing a little bit of stress. We had like the dog get skunked a couple times, so we got to do the 9 or 10 o'clock at night baiting of the dog. That was a little anxiety driven.
The skunk capturing, you definitely want to leave to a professional.
Yes, that's absolutely.
I'm glad you didn't have to learn that lesson.
I heard reasonable charges, and some of the conversations we've had with not only Critter Getter and our septic gentlemen, they're very open about Christianity here. We were very surprised because where we come from, you don't really talk about that unless you're in small groups and very, tight knit communities that
Yeah.
Kristen. Out here, it comes out naturally.
Yeah.
So we're very stressed.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because another thing that drew us here is we felt like we had values in common with the community. We're very much into, God, country, and family. And those are certainly values that I see here. Like, they really respect veterans. My husband's a veteran. They have special parking spots for him, special discounts. Yeah, and that's great. And we love that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I know, so I guess that's probably something you guys maybe didn't expect to experience when you got here. Is there anything else that you can think of that was like, wow, we did not see that one coming?
Well, I did mention to you, people here tend to have, at least from what I've gathered, tend to have families earlier and larger. So sometimes I'll be talking to a woman and she'll be beautiful skin. I'll think she's with her daughter, but she's really with her granddaughter. So I've learned not to assume the generational link. And I've run into that a few times. I mean, obviously, are you leading toward the California thing? Because
Just in general.
I mean, and Brian knew I was very concerned about coming here and not being welcome because we're Californian. And we really tried to be sensitive to that. I mean, we understand how it feels to people who've lived here a long time, and then some out-of-towner comes here and buys a big house. And we couldn't see how that would set people off. We always planned to be good neighbors when we came here. We were good neighbors in our area, and we plan to do the same here. And we've already been doing volunteering. But like I told Brian, too, I felt like we already contributed to the economy by our daughter's out-of-state tuition at University of Oregon. And, I'm sure, similar to many people who live here, you're going to do renovations and you're going to do this and that builds the economy too. And we've met some wonderful people here, just hardworking entrepreneurs, businessmen and businesswomen. And also, if you're looking for work, if you're in a service economy here, you can do well with all the retirees. Like, if you know computer skills, you can help, the people. If you know HVAC or whatever it is, I definitely see, a great economy in that regard.
And we're a little better connected now. We've been here a little over a year, both in church and community. And in the conversations that we have, we were a little worried about saying we're from California. And then you ask people through conversation, where did you come from? Are you original Oregonians? And they'll go, no, I'm from Texas, or I'm from Southern California or Northern California or Bakersfield. So about 85% of the people we talk to are not from around here, and have moved here. So they'll fit right in no matter what state you're coming from.
Yeah, oh, totally. I mean, a lot of the folks that we work with, like I've sold in the last month, 2 houses of people from San Diego, people from Texas, Delaware. I mean, all over the country, people are relocating here because of all the reasons that you guys are mentioning right now. And we haven't even talked, barely about the climate a little bit, but we've never talked about really cost of living. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on that, having been here for a year now. But cost of living and just all the things to do outdoors and all that kind of stuff that is really drawing people in from all over the place. But before we get into that, I want to ask one more thing on the California topic, because I think what the stigma, I guess, comes from a lot of locals who think that folks are moving up here from California and they're gonna California or Oregon, right? And yeah, but what my experience has been, and working with a lot of people that have made this move, is that they're getting out of California because of the direction that California has gone, and they're saying, we don't want to experience that anymore. We want to go somewhere where it's like how things used to be, right? And like we were talking about before we started rolling, like there's Southern Oregon has something for everybody, right? So if you were like, hey, I love that, very like progressive kind of movement and stuff, that exists here. Like that's Ashland. It's just like Berkeley. That's what you're coming with, Steve.
Berkeley 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. And that exists. Those pockets exist. And there's also the exact opposite of that. The polar opposite of that exists too. And so, but I liked what you had mentioned about that, Jen. It's maybe you can kind of share your experience there.
Well, I have to say, no one at any time has made me feel bad about being from California. I always try to meet it with humor, because people do ask, where are you from? And I always just say, oh, from the state that shall not be mentioned. And they laugh. And also, they don't ask you about your politics, which I like too. I was telling Brian, I got a little tired of being vetted in the Bay Area. And that's like the first thing people ask you. And, I just find it very personal and very divisive. And I don't necessarily want to talk about it with people I've barely met. So people have been great. I did read some stuff on Nextdoor, and I, I remember calling you like, they're saying, oh, Californians are going to deplete the water table. And I remember joking with you about getting a t-shirt like water table depleter. But, we're just, I think if you prove yourself, people are fine. And I have to say our neighbors have been super kind and very helpful in educating us about maybe not walking the dog during elk rutting season and, just teaching us the things that we need to know out here. So
letting the dog out at night and leaving it out by itself.
yeah. Oh no, we would never do that.
Yeah.
Boston would.
That's people learn that one the hard way though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know several people that have, but
Yeah.
but to kind of continue on the things and move on to our questions here in the same line though, like what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you guys have experienced since in your year of being here?
Well, once again, the skunks were a little bit over the top. Never experienced the skunks. I've seen skunks in California, but never had, my dog sprayed more than once in a short period of time. I had surgery prior to moving here. So I was a little concerned that, here I now have, 4 acres to take care of, that, my body was going to respond well, and it has. So that's good. And if you can't get out there and mow yourself, you can always hire somebody to mow. And the prices up here in Oregon are far, far better than where we came from.
Cheaper.
Yeah.
Another beautiful thing is there's no sales tax in Oregon.
So that's a perfect segue into cost of living.
Oh.
And so, I'm assuming, I see the data all the time. The Bay Area is, 200 and something percent of the national average, 220, I think is what I had seen last. And Southern Oregon is like 106% of the national average. So has that been what's kind of your experience felt like?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's certainly something you think about when you're headed into retirement. I mean, the Bay Area is nice if you're making, big boy and big girl money. But when you're a fixed income, it just goes a lot further here. There's no sales tax. I definitely look at food cost, and, particularly if you shop wisely, you can really save at like the Winco and things. We've really enjoyed that. And if you live rural, you don't have the water, you don't have the septic. The electrical bill, we were running about $600 in California, and we run about half of that here. So, and that was for, just your normal 1,800-foot square rancher. So, yeah, the utility bills were just getting insane when we left. Just water and power was about over $1,000 a month.
Yeah. So okay. So on that, real quick, just to clarify for the people listening. So do you have propane or natural gas? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Here?
Yeah.
Just electric. It's just electric.
Everything's electric. So
everything's electric.
All electric, and the house is 2,600 square feet.
3,300.
3,300. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. My bad. No, you should remember that.
Why would you know?
It was here. Yeah, but okay. So big house.
Yeah.
2-story house, all electric, and you're averaging $300 a month.
Yes, I would say that.
I think that's an important thing.
It was 600 in January, but it can be like 100 in May. So
yep. So those cold months, my old house used to be all electric, and same.
So we are going to look into solar. That's our next project. So and just no sales tax, and like we had lunch the other day, and it was a nice lunch, and it was like $60, but that would have been $100 in Walnut Creek. So
how about property taxes? How does that compare?
Property taxes, it's counted by county.
It's less.
So Jackson County, which is Ashland, Medford, Rogue River, is closer to what they're paying in the Bay Area. I think it's 9%.
In the Bay Area, it's 1. We pay about half.
Yeah, so pretty close. Josephine County, which is a little further north of Jackson County, north and west, it was less than 0.7. So I think it was 0.66, somewhere there. So that's a third less than what we were paying in the Bay Area.
And so the way that works here is it's also based on assessed value, right? And so that's a big question we get a lot is, like in California, if your house sells, that's now the new baseline that you're taxed on, right? That's not how it works in Oregon. It's if your house sells, it doesn't matter. It's still worth the assessed value that the county tax assessor says that it's worth. And that changes every year. Generally, it goes up, of course. But I've seen it go down. In years when home values decline, your assessed value also declined. And so your property taxes were less. So it is a generally speaking, less than what you're going to see in an area like the Bay Area from what I've seen. Also because just the property values are less, right? So if you're paying 1% of, the values down there, it's going to be still a significantly higher, annual payment than similar percentage of a much lower value here. So,
and there's other intrinsic costs that you don't consider too, just like vet bills. They're about 50% here. DMVs, I think it was like 300 for several years.
You do 2 year.
oh yeah, the vehicle registration is significant.
So less. Yeah. So for the most part, it's been great. Income tax, actually, there's not a big difference income tax wise between Oregon and California. So you're not going to save a lot there. That's just depending on your brackets or circumstances. But you're not going to be looking at a big decrease in income tax.
Although you go fill up your gas tank and it's $1.40 less here than it is close to the refineries where we were in California. So that makes no sense whatsoever. That's the taxes.
And it's really, even in Oregon, obviously, it seems like it's not very low. I mean, relative to other parts of the country, if you go to Nevada, for example, it seems like parts of Nevada, it's significantly less. And then I think even like I was in Tennessee last summer, and I want to say it was significantly less over there too. But anyway, so on a positive note, what would you guys say has been your absolute favorite thing about living in Southern Oregon over the last year?
So just achieving the dream of being on the river. We pretty much spent all last summer kayaking or boating and swimming, and just the beauty. We try to every weekend when it's good weather, go hiking at a different spot. And, we could probably spend 5 years and not see every beautiful place that's here. I get feeds on my Facebook, like try this place. And they're just they all look amazing.
Any favorites that you want to share?
We like Orange Torpedo river cruises, both kayaking, river rafting, whitewater rafting. They have evening floats we've been on, where you cruise down the river in the summertime, where you want to be close to the water because it's there was 10 days we got 100 degrees, and then the rest of it's in the 90s. So that was a beautiful thing. We had friends and colleagues and family want to come up and visit us, and we get to take them to the wineries and take Orange Torpedo tours. And
there's a charming kind of old Western town called Jacksonville that's not very far from here and that we like to go to. And there's a lot of wineries conveniently along the road. And then of course Ashland, if you're into theater and you sort of want a little bit more like big city amenities, it would be Ashland. I mean, personally, I like hiking at Tom Pierce Park. I don't know if you know that one. And I enjoy the hike to Tokima Falls is pretty too. And then, of course, Hellgate Canyon is just something. It is out of a movie. It was out in the River Wild. And it was a dream to kayak through that.
Yeah, that's a good hike too. I think I just saw that they closed the trail for a little bit, but the Rogue River Trail from Grave Creek down the wild and scenic section of the Rogue River. You can actually hike the Rogue River Trail 40 miles all the way down to Agnes. Wow. And so it's a through trail, but you can just also go down, a couple miles and turn around, come back. But it's complete wilderness. There's no roads, no improvements, no nothing. It's just a trail, and it's beautiful. I went down there and camped with some buddies one time. It was awesome. Great experience. So that would be a fun one.
Yeah. If you're outdoorsy, this is a state for you.
We have found that the Rogue, there's two rivers that run through this area. The Rogue River is the main river, right through the middle of town of Grants Pass. It's excellent for fishing, boating, but the best place to swim is the Applegate River, which is not too far away. And that's a little calmer, and you bring the kids and the dogs and the floaties out and not worry about getting, swept away because the road can be
you have to respect the
pretty strong river.
Have you guys ventured out to the Illinois River?
We have not.
We have not. That's in the
out towards so the wild west.
Here's
the thing. So I want you, if you guys have some time this summer, go out to the Illinois River and then tell me what river you think is the best swimming river.
Okay.
I think every local is probably going to leave me a comment right now for telling you to go to the Illinois River. But I'm telling you, you're locals now, so you can go check it out.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, in my opinion, there's no better swimming river. The water is crystal clear. It's beautiful. You just have to make sure you pick a good spot and get there early because some of the hiking down can be pretty steep and they can get pretty busy, but There's a lot of really, really beautiful spots. It's gorgeous out there.
And there's a great like sausage place.
Yes, Taylor's.
Yeah.
Taylor's sauces, absolutely.
So the Bay Area, with the wine country so close to the Bay Area, going up to Napa and the Napa Valley, going through the Applegate Valley, so to speak, is very similar, but it's quieter. It's a little more rural with little farms dotted here and there.
Yeah.
It's peaceful. There's restaurants along the way, and my favorite is the Red Lily Winery that they did.
Very lovely.
Beautiful,
Nicely
great.
done. Great
Yeah.
food, great wine, beautiful.
Yeah, that's a nice place to get a bottle and go over a couple glasses and go down to the little beach that they have there set up. And that's such a nice spot. I agree. It's one of my favorites for sure.
And we've had lots of relatives use the Medford Airport, which is growing, getting bigger, expanding, which is good.
Yeah.
You may have to do a connecting flight unless you're coming from Denver or SFO
Or
San Francisco or LA, but that's just an extra, hour on the flight or so. So it can be done.
Yeah.
It's the easiest airport to drive in and out of.
Oh, yeah.
Medford Airport is just awesome.
They say to get there, at least an hour before your flight. I'm like, if you're not checking a bag, you can literally, and especially if you have TSA pre-check, you could literally walk in the front door, be like 3 people in line, walk right through and get on your plane.
No, with TSA pre-check, they just give you a card to hold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where's your card?
Yeah, it's great.
Correct.
Love that. So I want to go back real quick to something you guys had said, because you're talking about all this fun you were having over the summer and hiking and rafting. And how did you do that with all the wildfire smoke?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was something we really did. We knew that there was smoke during certain times, but we just kind of figured Oregon, with sort of environmental reputation, would be similar to the Bay Area. And I have to admit, the Bay Area has very clean air. So that is nice. So it wasn't a bad smoke summer. We just pray that, because we live rural, we all pray that we don't get any fires. And people here are very serious. There's no fireworks. They take it very seriously, which I like. What we didn't know is, though we know people burn rurally, we just didn't know how intensive that is. So and we have no problem with people burning. We get it, but it can be a bit much when everyone's burning, 3 months of garbage at the same time.
Yeah. Well, burning garbage is illegal, but burning brush and sticks.
Green limbs. Yeah.
It's just very smoky.
So that's what I just wanted to clarify. That's what you're talking about. Burning is burning, brush / all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
All dead leaves and stuff like that people tend to do. But yeah, absolutely. Those days where you get your first couple burn days of the year. It can get smoky.
So fortunately, we don't have any sensitivities. But if you have asthma, I would think hard about how take a look at the air quality levels and think about that.
Yeah, but so the big point with the air quality thing with the summer was that it wasn't so bad that it kept you guys like locked indoors, that you didn't go out.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. A lot of people have this fear of like, oh my gosh, there's wildfires and we're going to be stuck inside all summer long. It's like, not really. I mean, there's days where, like you said, it kind of blows in and then it blows out and it's fine for a couple weeks and, that blows back in, and you never know, right?
Yeah. You do have to think about it, particularly if you're scheduling like an outdoor event. Like I had some friends over for Shakespeare and we were going to the outdoor theater and it was a smoky day and, that kind of inhibited the fun a little bit, but it's just something to think about.
We did find out during the warm days of July, and there was a couple smoky days in there, that if you're close to the river, the air is a whole lot better when you're right on the water. So good to take a Orange Torpedo trip.
Right. Orange Torpedo is not sponsoring this video, by the way, but if they want to, they can. Our contact info is in the details below. So
they're very convenient to us. They're Merlin and they're
I've actually never gone on an Orange Torpedo trip myself, but I know I've heard nothing but great things about them from everybody that I know that's ever gone. It's supposed to be total top notch, great trip. So while we're on the wildfire topic, I wanted to just ask about insurance, because I know that's something that also comes up and is on people's mind. But did you guys have any challenges getting homeowners insurance on 4 acres?
I will have to say, and I hate to say this because people are so worried about it here and they talk about it all the time. Because my husband's a veteran, we have USAA. And we've had no problem. We didn't even have our insurance increase. And I think it's probably because they're sort of spread out through the country. So their risk is not concentrated in high areas. But, I am so sad for the people that lose their insurance. We hear about it all the time. But we heard it all the time in California, too. So many of our friends who live in beautiful homes in the hills just can't get it.
Yeah.
And,
And that's down there, or are you meaning up here?
down there.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where all the luxury homes are, up in the hills. So,
Yeah.
And so far we haven't even had an inquiry from our.
We talked to a lot of our neighbors and people that are at our social,
Yeah.
and nobody has lost their insurance
So far.
so far.
Yeah.
We've done some tree clearing close to our house and some fire prevention
You should.
issues, which is smart.
Yeah.
Mow the tall grass, kind of attitude. But it's something that happens in California all the time. We actually looked at Alta Sierra in California for a little while, but the insurance companies were dropping people left and right in California.
Yeah.
We just didn't want to go there. We didn't want to move into a house and a year later lose our policy. So we came to Oregon, and it's been working out so far.
Yeah. I know other people that, have made the similar move from various parts of California have also, whether they had their insurance dropped, there's people that have had it significantly increased, like many, many, many times. Yeah. And it's like, geez, just crippling
I'm sure there's people who are making the decision, like, is it even worth it, and I feel for them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, obviously we didn't know this whole fire map. There's an issue here where they map all the properties and decide if they were in high risk areas. And we ended up being in a high risk area, although we've had firemen look at our house and say it's perfectly safe and it's perfectly cleared. But there's a lot of pushback against it too. So we're hoping for some relief.
Yeah. So my house is also at a high risk area. It's very similar, surrounded by, nice green grass and all that kind of stuff. But that map, the way that I understand it from talking to the various insurance agents, is that they actually utilize their own maps. They have their own researchers doing their own things, and they look at those. So there's a lot of different companies out there that we've had a lot of success with who, I can just, if we're working together and you're looking at a house, I can just text them and say, hey, tell me about 123 Main Street. What's the score? Do you think there's going to be any issues with insuring that? And they'll just fire right back. Nope, that one's great. It's a 22 out of 100 or whatever the case is, right? So I think since we even were looking, there's things that have progressed quite a bit to where insurance companies are kind of starting to figure it out and be more comfortable with that and figuring out ways to accommodate the buyers.
I do remember in January when we were working with you, the hours before you put the bid in, we actually checked with our insurance company.
Yes. Oh yeah.
With specific addresses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Two houses hit the list, and we checked on both those, and our insurance company was copacetic and allowing us to get insurance on both.
Yeah, that's great.
So call them first.
Yeah, right? Yeah, absolutely. So another one of the things that is brought up a lot, so wildfires, smoke, all that kind of stuff, homelessness. And so just was curious, kind of over the year, there's actually the year that you guys have been here, there's been a lot of change in the homelessness and with the Supreme Court case with the Grants Pass and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of curious what your experience has been driving around Grants Pass, or has it been in your face? Has it been not an issue? What have you guys experienced?
It was interesting to tell our friends and family that, hey, our little town has instigated this Supreme Court case, although it turned out like a lot of the governors from even the blue states were in on that. So it wasn't just Grants Pass that brought this lawsuit. People talk a lot about the homelessness, but they do have areas here to stay at. And for the most part, they haven't impacted at us at all. Although I did have one experience when I was walking with my sister in downtown, and we were followed by a homeless person. We just, kind of ignored him because we just weren't in the mood to deal with it. And he followed us for 4 blocks. And I turned off and he followed us. And at that point, I just turned around and asked him to stop following us. It's just a security issue with 2 women. And he started screaming obscenities at me. And it was kind of unpleasant because my sister was visiting.
Yeah.
She was an Army veteran too. So she wasn't too thrilled about it. So that was one experience that we had that was not great. And another experience we had is I was coming from the DMV. I just got my license here. And I had a poor homeless gentleman, really, on drugs, step out in front of me on what is that, 99 that goes through town. And I was going about 45 and it's a fast road, on a wet road, and I had nothing I could do because I couldn't brake. I would hit him. So I had to swerve into the next lane. I didn't even have a chance to look. So late, I could have hit the car that was right there. Fortunately, she saw it and stopped, and she honked, and I waved. I'm like, sorry. And she understood what had happened. But I would have killed him, and that would have been, so that would have ruined, that would not have been a good thing. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank God that didn't.
Yeah. So it's, we belong to a church, River Valley Church, that bought a large property in the middle of town. So we're hopeful that we can help offer services that way.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a problem that that seems like in the news. It's as big as it's made out to be.
Right. I think a lot of folks read, comments or you start researching online and you see, oh my gosh, the parks are overrun and this and that. And I think you go out there, 2 years ago, and you would have probably had a much different experience than if you go out there today.
Yes, I agree. They have cleared a lot of parks out, and I believe they should have places to live. But I think also children and families should be able to enjoy parks on their weekends. With feeling safe, and so I'm sort of glad then that the parks are coming back.
Yeah, I think that tends to be the general consensus there for most people. So that's good. So anything else story-wise or experience-wise related to, the drug scene? I'm just trying to think of like what people comment and ask questions about drugs, crime, any of that kind of stuff. Have you had any?
Coming from the Bay Area, you smell weed outside when people are burning far more than I smell in even the parks. In Grants Pass.
That's
it's every once in a while you might catch a whiff here and there, but there was more in California than there is out here.
Yeah.
There's
dispensaries.
I would agree.
Yeah. That's funny because I think Southern Oregon again had like this reputation for being very, cannabis industry like centric. There's a lot of grows and all that, but that was another one of those things that like they made a really big effort to crack down on all the illegal activity, the illegal grows that weren't licensed, all that kind of stuff. And then the industry, like coincidentally at this similar timing, just absolutely tanked. The price for the product and stuff. I was reading about this the other day, just declined so massively because there was this huge influx of supply, and everybody started to build their businesses here, thinking that it was going to become legal federally, and you could cross state lines with it, but you still can't. And so all of the product has to stay in the state, and so it just flooded the market. And they drove the prices down, and they essentially put themselves out of business. And so it's really, whether that's a good or bad. I hate to say it's a good thing to put people out of business, but I think a lot of the residents would agree. Like that's not really an industry that people really like. We're excited to have here. It's as good as it apparently grew here. It's like, hey, it was the smell and the tarps that were up on fences all over the place, and it just was not, I think, what Southern Oregon wanted to be known for. And so it's kind of nice to see that go away, in my opinion. Or at least it's not fully away, but significantly reduced.
And depending on where you live in Southern Oregon, not just Grants Pass and Medford, you have White City, Rogue River. You could be away from city center in minutes and into a suburban, or not a suburban, but a rural, more atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, and you don't see some of the problems that are occurring downtown all the time because you don't live downtown all the time.
Yeah.
So don't give up on the country. It's great in the suburbs, but it can be even better in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna change gears a quick second. So is there anything that you guys miss about California?
Okay, I was thinking about this. And this is really important. I do miss Kaiser. I wasn't. We were long-term members of Kaiser Permanente, and since my daughter had it at University of Oregon, we just assumed it was in Southern Oregon. Well, it's not. So if you like that big mothership approach to medicine, I do miss it. They have. We've had excellent medical care here, but it's very spread out. You have to go here and drive here and set up an account here, and you get bills all over the place, which is very different from the Kaiser approach. So I would love, I've heard rumors that they might come up to Southern Oregon. So I would like that. Other than that, I don't miss, I hate to say it, but I don't miss California all that much. When we go down, we sometimes dread the bad drivers. The people here are such courteous drivers. I haven't had anyone pass me on the ride at 90 on the shoulder, that's a that was getting commonplace.
Wow.
And that was another factor. When you're older, you just want to be around
Yeah.
safe drivers as your skills decline a bit. So, yeah. And of course, we miss our friends and family, but we're always down to see them and they come up and, yeah, so I guess I would say Miss Kaiser.
So if anybody's been a homeowner listening to this, you will love the Home Depot we have up here in Grass Pass, and it's probably elsewhere as well. They have more than one Home Depot in the area. I mean, they will actually come up to you and ask you if they can help you find something. Whereas in the Bay Area, they would see you looking like you had a question and turn the other way and go into the different aisle.
Yeah.
And not only just one person, you'll have 3 or 4 as you walk in through the store, literally come up and, be courteous to you, say good morning and say, is there anything I can help you find? I just blew me away. I couldn't quite get how gracious they were. People on the streets are more gracious. I feel more secure that if I had any issues walking or driving anywhere, that somebody would come, help me out. In Oregon, it's just a different mindset.
It is. And I try to share that in a lot of the videos and stuff and tell a couple stories that, have been my own experience where I know like a long time ago, my truck, like the alternator went out or something as I was driving and it just shut off and it was raining. And so I had to walk. I was on the other side of town. I had to walk to Napa or Riley or whatever, AutoZone, whatever it was. And I was walking and 2 people like stopped right within the first 20 yards of me leaving my truck.
Wonderful.
Like, is there anything we do to help you? Do you need some tools? Do you need a ride? And one of the guys gave me a ride down, the 5 blocks down to the parts store. And then, I was able to get my stuff and take care of it. So, that's in my other experience. I've had people stop and I used to have this old Jeep that break down all the time. I had somebody stop and literally like rewire my headlights. Wow. When I was in high school because the like little clicker on my headlight thing wouldn't work, and he just rewired the whole thing right there on the side of the street. It was crazy.
That kind of reminds me, we had the big flood I was referenced earlier a couple of weeks ago, and I look out on my driveway, and there's just some guy there with a bobcat. It's like
a live bobcat, or they could
driving a bobcat. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, with a bobcat, and it was just like every guy in the neighborhood. This was their moment. They were driving around and helping us shovel out water, and it was a great way to meet our neighbor.
Yeah, even the women know how to use chainsaws or power equipment. It's very impressive.
Yeah. Pioneer.
One of the things I do miss a lot about California is because I used to work outside in the awesome weather in the Sunshine State. It's colder in Oregon.
It is colder.
So you look at today, I think in California, it's going to get warmer this weekend, or later this week. And it was 10 degrees colder. So, bring your long pants certain times of the year, and those jackets that you had stored away in California, you might need, a little extra in that regard. But it takes a little longer to heat up here in Oregon. Like around 11 o'clock in the Bay Area, it gets pretty toasty. Out here, it's like 1 o'clock. It gets toasty. So you get a little more,
especially this time.
Yeah, especially this time of year.
But the spring in Southern Oregon, and we're early spring kind of as we shoot this, like generally in a normal year, this is a wet, cold year. Mm-hmm. In a normal year, you would already see, a lot more like the flowers blooming. You would see, we joke in the spring because it's like you could literally see it snow in the morning and then you could be wearing shorts and flip-flops in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. It's just, there's such a wide variety of weather in a given day in the spring here. It's just, it's crazy.
So if you're going to move here, keep those PJs handy. They come in handy.
Yeah, you're going to need to keep in your truck an umbrella, a raincoat, a parka, some shorts and flip-flops, probably a tank top, maybe a towel for the river.
This is all good stuff, and this is all
sunscreen, sunglasses.
Yes. Like I said, I would never wear flannel PJs, and I finally broke down. I just couldn't take it anymore.
That's funny. So what advice would you share with or give to somebody that's considering making the exact move you guys did?
First of all, change is good for you. It stimulates your brain, especially at our age. And I would just say embrace the change. Don't be afraid. Do your homework. We had a 3-year plan, and we We very purposely read through the inspection report. We compared prices. We watched price change. Get a really good agent who knows the neighborhoods. Come down early and spend some time in whatever community you're interested in. Try to get a feel for it. But on the whole, I think it's hard to go wrong with Southern Oregon. With some of the things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Definitely save money from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I live out of the country, maybe 10 minutes from downtown Grants Pass. I could be at Dutcher Creek Golf Course inside of 18 minutes, and they're $30 for 18 holes on green fees, and I think there's an extra $16 if you drive on a power cart.
Yeah.
They are a public course. The other public course I recommend is the Applegate River Golf Course, and they're a 9-hole course, but they're right on the Applegate River. If you want to do 18, you just go through twice. They're an even better bargain at about $38. Green fees and cart.
Yeah.
So
It's a good one.
there's a semi-private Grants Pass golf course, but it's a little pricey, and you're probably not going to do anything before 1 o'clock on most days because it is a semi-private. And but
Yeah. Block out the morning for the members.
for under $60, you can get in there.
Yeah.
So for those golfers out there, this is great weather, and the courses are pretty close in.
Yeah.
There's even more in Medford and elsewhere
Yep.
around.
And at the coast too. You just Bandon Dunes is a 3-hour drive or so away. So there's all sorts of options there. Or over in Bend is another 3 hours in the opposite direction. Tons of courses there, but lots of fun stuff to do outside.
And if you're, it's important you find your tribe here too. Whether you join a church or join a gym or pursue a hobby. But the only way you're going to meet people is if you have to purposely kind of put yourself out there a bit. So especially if you don't have children, at our age it's a little bit harder to meet people. But we've been blessed by meeting some great people through church, and we've met some people through our gym, and our neighbors have been really great too.
We just found a great sushi restaurant. It was Shashi.
Sushi restaurant.
Oh, yes.
Oh, cool.
It's a good one.
They are good.
I found a great hairdresser, Melinda at Headhunters. Yay! That's one of the first things I did was find.
We have a doctor. A dentist, optometrist.
That's work. Finding all this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
It's work.
I'm sure.
Check it off on the list.
Yeah. Cool. So most important question
Oh.
of the entire conversation. Who is the best real estate agent in all of Southern Oregon? Just kidding. That's not a real question. Just kidding. But I was curious if if you guys would be willing to share just anything about what was your experience like in working with myself and my team, and how did that all go from your guys' perspective?
Well, absolutely. You have to have a really strong real estate agent, and it's a real leap of faith. Like, you're putting, and it's a very intimate relationship too while you're going through it. I mean, we spent 3 days in Brian's car, and he just 100% customer service oriented. And I really appreciate that. And I felt like I was your only client. I'm sure it wasn't probably your most demanding during that time, but super patient, very knowledgeable. I just highly recommend Brian. And I felt like he's very knowledgeable with the whole California to Oregon transfer. I know everyone has a little niche, and I don't know if you're the only one in that niche, but he's definitely good at what he does. And he also helped me, like, our relationship wasn't over when the house sold. I would call him for like a year, like, hey, who's a good glass mat, or who's a good, and he was always good about, like, how do I get Ducks tickets? They're all sold out, and just totally randoms.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate that. It was awesome working with you guys throughout the whole process. And still, again, like, if there's anything we can do to help with recommendations or anything, happy to help any way we can.
Definitely use them again. My daughter's coming to the time where she might want to buy her first house, and we were starting to talk to Brian a little bit about that.
And also, when we moved up here, we weren't super familiar. We knew we liked the Grants Pass area, but we were expanding our horizon a little bit, and we were looking at Shady Cove and Jacksonville. I don't think we looked at Ashland, but we didn't really pursue anything in Ashland. And there's a lot of rural properties in the area, and you want somebody who's familiar with the area showing you around, because you can run into some pitfalls.
And I felt like Brian was really good at assessing who we are. Because sometimes there would be something I liked, and he would kind of say, oh, do you really want to live on that busy road? And he really got what we wanted, and he probably knew it better than we did. So we ended up very happy with where we landed. And I think he's a good judge of what your needs are.
Love that. I'm glad to hear you guys are very, very happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy it worked out that way. And that's, you guys have a beautiful home here, and love that you're enjoying your time in Southern Oregon. So, and thank you so much for doing this and being willing to share your story with everybody. And if you are out there thinking of making the same move that these folks made, reach out. I'm more than happy to help you. Call, text, email. All that information is down in the description of this video. So we thank you for watching, and we'll